Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here on another Tuesday, getting closer to spring, closer to opening day, another baseball season about to be upon us. The New York Mets looking mighty strong this year, but we're not going to be talking baseball today. We're going to be talking professional wrestling, the good, the bad, and the elite. Here on the Drive Thru, I'm your host, the great Brian Last. I'll be asking your questions. I almost said answering there. I'll be asking your questions to this man, the man who will be answering these questions. He is the proprietor of Cornette's Collectibles. He is a many-time Manager of the Year, Booker of the Year, Interview of the Year, and dare I say Podcaster of the Year, Mr. Jim Cornette.
It wasn't long enough.
That was a minute.
I needed more time. You see, ladies and gentlemen, something you don't know about the backstage part of the drive-thru is that we barely speak to each other before we get on the air, and we barely have any idea of what we're going to do once we get on the air, because people like the spontaneous nature, the extrapolation, and the speaking extemporaneously on a plethora and potpourri of topics. But sometimes we just got shit. And so I just said to Brian Last moments before we debuted this fine program, I said, well, what do you got? He said, I ain't got, what do you got? I said, well, has anybody done anything stupid lately? For once, no, not the past 3 days. That's unusual. Well, goddamn, we got any happy talk? I'm not particularly happy. Well, I told him finally, I told you, Brian Last, as I'm speaking now to the people out there, I told him, I said, just give me a long intro and I'll think of something. But it wasn't long enough. This is your show.
Well, it is my show, and before we go
Hey,
off...
let me ask you this.
Okay, take over.
Let me ask you this. You going to get vaccinated?
I hope so, yes.
We've been hearing about now they're rolling them out. They've got another one. This one may be only one shot. What, the Johnson & Johnson? The other ones, you got to get 2 shots. Supplies are still limited. They're still prioritizing people.
And the good thing is, if the Johnson & Johnson one doesn't work, I know a guy who already sued their ass that could go in there and kick their ass again.
Yeah, Johnson & Johnson hadn't got a great track record. They couldn't get baby powder right, but they can cure the world's most notorious disease? But you are going to eventually get vaccinated.
I am. I'm actually trying to figure it out right now. I know that I guess you can kind of get on a list to get called by one of these places, but also without revealing any names.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, we'll put your name down and we'll call you as soon as about anything. That never works.
Without revealing any names, we have a friend who is a pharmacist.
Oh,
and we may have to go into New York, but we may have a hookup ASAP.
Wait a minute. You found out that my old friend from the garment district up there.
Oh, give me a break.
He had a cousin.
Do you remember his name? The fake name you made up for him?
No, I can't remember the guy's name.
Shifty Flanagan.
Shifty Flanagan. That's. But
you forgot his name. Too much Hotchkiss on the mind. Yeah.
But okay. Swifty Flanagan, but he had a cousin that went to medical school up there out of the back of one of those tractor trailer trucks. You know how they've got it set up down there on the wharf, down there on the docks in New York. What is that? The Bowery part down there?
No, well, there's South Street Seaport, that area.
They got those big truck pods, a big thing. Well, they had a medical school they were running out of there, and Swifty Flanagan's cousin was graduated tops of his class. So he can fix you up. He'll give you a shot in an alley.
No, it's not that. You know what it is? So a friend of ours, again, without revealing any names or any info that could get this person in trouble, the story is that people are now signing up on multiple lists to get the vaccine, and they go to whichever one they can get in first. but they still have an available slot that they were scheduled for. So they can't waste those vaccines. They have a problem where they have a vaccine scheduled for someone, but they jump on the earlier available vaccination. So we talked to the person over the weekend and we were explaining, hey, is there any way, you could hook us up with that? And maybe like a bucket load of Vicodin? No, I didn't say that. But is there any way you could hook us up with...
Hey, wait a minute.
With, the vaccine? And that was the story we were told, that there are vaccines that they have to use that they aren't using because people are just jumping on wherever they can get the available appointments. So we're probably going to take that.
So you're gonna go ahead and jump in wherever you can get an available vaccine.
That's right.
Okay, you're another one of these low down line jumpers, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't be jumping a line. I'd be standing in place in a line. It's like when someone gets up at the award show and they send someone in to sit in their seat while they're gone, so you don't notice
seat filler.
An empty seat. That's right.
So you're a shot filler.
That's right.
When somebody's not there and the shot comes, you take their shot because you're a shot filler. Actually, you'd be a shot taker.
I'll take it.
You've taken a number of shots in your lifetime. Well, I don't know about I think you're going to end up on some kind of list one way or the other with this practice, but I'm not in a hurry. And I'll tell you why. I'm not one of these nuts that 3 months after you take the vaccine, you're going to turn into a fucking werewolf or whatever, right? But for one thing, the Johnson & Johnson people, as we know, they've got a shady record. But no, in all seriousness, I am probably in the lowest percentile of anybody in this country that needs to be vaccinated. So I'm in no hurry because I'm not going to jump in front of people who are going out in public every day and coming in contact with all kinds of greasy, slobbering people. Stace and I do not have to interact with any outside humans that we do not want to interact with. And I'm pretty much, like I said, I've never been so healthy in my life the last year, staying away from people. As a matter, I've got so good at social distancing, even after this is all cured and or a thing of the past, I'm going to continue practicing my social distancing because I've never felt better. But there's no reason that's what you said. All these people are desperate. Oh, we got to get this. We got to get this. If they're first responders, if they're medical personnel, teachers, those people ought to be getting it first. If it's just some wise ass from the rich suburbs trying to hop somewhere and get their vaccines, I think not. That should be suitably chastened, that activity. But thank you for at least not letting any vaccines go to waste, Brian.
Just trying to do my part.
Your civic duty.
That's right. That's right.
But
hey,
I'll wait for a while when they're common. When you can get one on every street corner, when they're having wholesale fucking clearance sale, we got to get rid of this vaccine. Then I'll go ahead and get mine because I ain't gonna wait in any lines for 8 hours. I'm not gonna fucking go around more people than I would see in the next 6 months just to get one shot. I'm fine right over here. I'll take my turn.
Since this is my show, I'm gonna introduce a new segment here.
I wish you would.
Just to get things going, to kick things off. Classic programs. I'm gonna pick up a program from my pile of stuff that I need to file here, and we'll talk briefly about this card.
From the file pile.
The file pile. There you go. I don't know why I didn't think of that. This program is from July 8th.
It's like the file pile is next to where you pay the troll toll.
I will take your word for that.
You got to pay the troll toll if you want to get this boy's hole.
All right. For those of you curious and concerned, that is a reference to Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Please don't call the authorities on Mr. Cornette.
Well, you got to pay the troll toll if you want to get this boy's hole.
Here is
He couldn't figure out how to say boy's soul, poor fellow. It always sounded like boy's hole and changed the meaning for the folks that saw the play.
As I was saying, this program, Saturday, July 8th, 1967, Arlington, Texas, at Turnpike Stadium.
See, you should have had me guess the year or something.
We'll do that next week.
All right.
Listen to this card, and this is a big card. Again, this is Arlington Turnpike Stadium, which would later become where the Texas Rangers played So Dallas, Fort Worth, they have their regular venues.
That was before they built Texas Stadium, which then was the scene of the Parade of Champions and Flair, Von Erich, and et cetera, et cetera.
The opening match on this show, Jack Briscoe versus Dory Funk Jr.
The opening match.
67. I mean, think about where those guys were.
Shit.
July
Briscoe's
67.
Been in the business for 2 years, and Dory had been working for, what, 4?
The second match, Mike Paducas versus Paul DeMarco. And the final preliminary match, Dory Funk Sr. versus Benny Mata. Special event, 1 fall, 20-minute time limit, Duke Kiyomuka versus The Destroyer.
Boy, I'm noticing a pattern here also. Besides Briscoe, Mike Paducas was a University of Tennessee football player. You just mentioned Duke Kiyomuka, who was a noted shooter that would later on be big in the Florida office.
The father of Pat Tanaka, for those who wonder.
The father of Pat Tanaka. They had a lot of shooters and athletes on the show at that point.
The final 2 matches, a 6-man tag team match, 2 out of 3 falls, 45-minute time limit. Waldo Von Erich, Bearcat Wright, and Joe Blanchard versus Buddy Austin, Killer Carl Cox, and The Brute. And finally, the main event for the World's Heavyweight Championship, 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit. Gene Kiniski versus Fritz Von Erich.
That was a shit.
I believe this is the night.
That was the one then that they drew 20-something thousand people to, right? Because the next big stadium crowd in Dallas was in 72 for Fritz and Dory Jr., right?
I don't think it was that big, because I don't think they had that many seats in Turnpike Stadium at that point. But I believe this is the night that Joe Blanchard turned heel on Fritz during the main event.
Yeah, because Waldo would have been in the 6-man tag because he came in to get some retribution for the Von Erich family with those heels while Fritz was going for the world title. And then Blanchard turns heel and sets up the war between San Antonio and Dallas, right?
I believe so. I don't know about the war between San Antonio and Dallas.
Well, they'd have ill feelings 20 years later when they were running opposition to each other.
And there it is, a classic program. The other one I have here that I just got, another of the classic.
What is this for you to just brag about shit that you've recently gotten?
Tony Santos, Jack Pfeffer programs.
Oh, you bastard.
So in this program, the Kentucky Hillbillies, Little Abner and Big Luke. You got to see these two. Here's the most bizarre fake I could think of. This is October 67. So Luke Graham had already debuted. Crazy Duke Graham.
Oh, God.
And it's a picture of Rufus R. Jones.
Oh, my God.
It's completely crazy, that one.
And you know what? There's a lot of young people out there go, what the fuck are they talking about? Crazy Luke Graham, by the way, was a 6'3", 300-pound white guy from Georgia with bleached blonde hair. And Rufus R. Jones was a 6-foot-tall, 275-pound black guy from Kansas City. And you couldn't confuse either one for the other.
And based on the back cover, I'm guessing Jack Pfeffer may have fallen out with someone by this point. Of course, if it's booked by Santos, it's big time, but there's a picture of 2 wrestlers, or perhaps the same wrestler pictured twice in a gorilla outfit, and it says the Fabulous Zargo Brothers.
Oh my God.
So I guess maybe Jackie Fargo fell out with Pfeffer at this point and was replaced by a man in a gorilla outfit.
You know what? That may have been that may have been when after Pfeffer got kicked out of Tennessee the last time, and Christine Jarrett threatened to. She wasn't going to kill him herself, but I think somehow it was phrased that she might have it done. And Jackie didn't stand up for him. I bet you that was the final straw. You've gone too far now, Jackie.
That's right. But Jim, let's get some topics and questions that the listeners want to know about. And here at the top of the show, I'm going to mention a couple that over the last week and one over the last several days, we've heard from a lot of people. So we're going to address them right here. One, the passing of the wrestler Josephus, or the question mark in the NWA, who I guess you had just worked with a couple years ago.
Yeah, and that came out of nowhere because he was only like 40 years old, and I guess they said it was either some kind of stroke or aneurysm or something like that, and I guess there was no advance notice that he was in any bad health or anything like that. I didn't know him very well, but I did work with him on those NWA shows in Nashville and Atlanta over the past couple of years. He had worked with them quite a while back because he was from the Nashville area, and he'd worked all the independents there. He was a nice guy. He really was. And I hated to hear that. I guess he's got a wife and kids. That's that was the thing, is that he knew he was not a world-class athlete, and that's not to knock him, because he knew that. He was just a hard worker, and he liked being in the wrestling business, and that's why he did the same thing that I told a lot of the guys in OVW, or I told everybody always do. He was good at different things. He was doing a lot of the editing work for the revamped NWA, and when they were doing the YouTube stuff and the shows in the studio in Atlanta. And he had worked with the Dark Side of the Ring guys before he shaved his head at one point. He had long hair so he could be their Bruiser Brody duplicate in their reenactments in silhouette. And he'd had a variety of different gimmicks. Billy Corgan and the guys in the NWA, everybody that worked there liked to find things for him to do. And the question mark thing was, and I can't defend it because it was silly. It was silly, but the fans, instead of the promotion, are the ones that kind of pushed it, I think, because they realized who it was and they just liked the guy and they wanted to cheer for him. And he had fun doing it. So, I feel bad for, as I said, for his wife and his kids and everything, and something like that to happen. And him not to, he didn't have any bad habits that I was aware of. He didn't have any reputation for abusing anything. There's no reason for a guy like that, to have bad health. So anyway, I was sorry to hear about that. He was a nice guy. And even though I was only around him, on the NWA shows, it was clear that everybody enjoyed working with him, and he was he was smart too. He wasn't, Josephus. I'd seen the name before I met him. And here's the thing, I guess his name was Joseph. And it's a Southern nickname. I've said that before, and then I've had to say, not the wrestler Josephus, after I heard about him being in wrestling, because Josephus is one of those Southern nicknames. And you expect to hear it, well, Josephus went over to find Cooter at the gas station. It's one of those, and it just means any fucking guy, right? But he took it and ran with it. So anyway, I don't know what else to say otherwise than you never know what the fuck's going to happen.
Well, as I said, another one that we've heard from a lot of people over the last couple days, maybe 3 days, is reportedly Jim Crockett Jr. is, as I read before, in grave condition right now in a hospital. And a lot of people wanted to hear your thoughts on someone who you worked for, someone who made you a lot of money, Jim Crockett Jr.
Well, and this is another thing that just came up all of a sudden, right? I hadn't heard that he was in bad health. He is 70, I guess 76 years old or something like that. But suddenly, boom, he's in the hospital. Oh my gosh. And things are not good. So, I got to admit, in the past, for a while, being mad at Jimmy Crockett, not mad like I'm going to cuss you or whatever, just like, God dang it. Disappointed, I guess, because the way the whole transition turned out between Crockett Promotions and Turner Broadcasting. At first, we all definitely were mad at him in 1988 for the 40 cents on the dollar on what he owed us on the contracts that we'd signed. And that wasn't limited to me and Midnight Express, but it was a number of people. But then with the passage of time, I realize that some people didn't get anything. If not, I don't think any of the wrestlers, but some of the other people that the company owed money to. But his attorney, Dennis Guthrie, was Crockett's attorney in that period of time, and he had called us and a few other people and said, "Look, we've got a limited amount of money to work with. We're calling you guys first. We got enough to pay you 40 cents on the dollar, and take care of the people he wants to take care of, or elsewise you can sue us and probably not get anything." So that was kind of an easy decision to make, but I was, not happy for a while. But in hindsight, not only did he at least come through with 40 cents on the dollar, but TBS had to start paying us on the contracts he signed, so we made a lot of money from them. And I get the disappointment came from just it. At first, we've mentioned this when we went into the deep dives. We were all excited about TBS owning the promotion because we thought it'll still be, the wrestling side will continue to be what it has been, and we'll have the money to expand and et cetera and do these things right instead of half-ass. And it turned out they destroyed the wrestling side. And so by 89, 90, me and some of the guys were like, fuck, Jimmy, if you'd have done this or that or the other thing. But then with the passage of time and me doing my own thing, promoting and realizing Crockett Promotions never wanted to expand nationwide. And they shouldn't have, and they didn't want to. And they did it only really out of getting caught up in two things. With Vince expanding and taking talent, you had to compete for talent. You had to compete for television time and television outlets. But Crockett knew that Jim Crockett especially knew they were strongest. And this is what their goal always was, to be Mid-Atlantic wrestling, to promote in the Carolinas and Virginia, to live comfortable, very comfortable lives that they all lived and had the money they needed to have, and regional, fame as far as Crockett Promotions. And he's the wrestling promoter. And that was the biggest professional sport in the Carolinas for 40 fucking years, besides NASCAR. When the two things happened were, one, Vince starting to expand and them having to compete for talent and for TV outlets and et cetera. But secondly, the business got so hot, it got impossible not to get caught up in it. When you can go to Philadelphia and sell out to Baltimore Civics, that'd be a real trick.
That is really impressive.
That's really impressive. When you can go to Philly and sell out to Philly Civic Center, go to Baltimore and sell out to Baltimore, now Arena, then the Civic Center, 12, 13,000 people. Or you can go, some of the various places that they could go and did, and Chicago, and do sellouts 7 months in a row in a 10,000 seat building. It was hard to turn down that kind of money, but then it's like being a little bit pregnant. And people kept telling him, we've got to keep up with Vince, and we got to new markets, and we got to go out to the West Coast. We had no business doing that. And so anyway, I guess the point is, I realized that he had people talking him into it, and it was easy to get caught up in it when you could go to those places and do that kind of business. But then it was all over the map. And for every Chicago, there was a fucking Peoria. Or for every, Philadelphia, there was also, when they'd try to go to goddamn, for whatever reason, West Palm Beach 2 weeks in a row or some shit. And it just, so anyway, you've got to say this about Jimmy Crockett. He ran for, almost 15 years, the only United States promotion that got big enough to compete with Vince McMahon on a level playing field as far as the TV ratings and the house show gates. As we mentioned before, it was just Vince put together so much of a and office infrastructure and marketing and merchandising and the business people and being based out of New York. And Vince always wanted to be Walt Disney of wrestling and take over the world. Jimmy Crockett didn't. As I said, they would have been as happy as clams, and I would have too, if they had continued to promote Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia, and parts of Georgia. They would have been happy to do that for the next 30 years, and I would have been happy to stay there and work for them.
Can I ask you a question or a couple questions? We all have done the what if Bill Watts gets the TBS time slot, which was where things were going. He was going to be a partner with Ted Turner and have the TV time, and then Jim Barnett brokered a deal to have Vince McMahon sell Jim Crockett Jr. the 605 show for $1 million. And that was it. All of a sudden, Turner didn't want to do the deal with Watts, and that was the end of Mid-South Wrestling, the highest rated show on cable television, being on TBS. And a lot of people have always said, what if Bill Watts had gotten that national time slot and he had been competing against Vince McMahon? But I want to ask it a different way. What if Bill Watts had gotten that time slot? What do you think the next few years of Mid-Atlantic Wrestling would have been like? And also, do you think things would have been as hot in '86 just based on local TV without the national cable outlet?
Boy, Bill Watts would not. Here's the thing. Bill Watts's wrestling show would have done even better ratings than Crockett having the slot, because Watts would have done, he wouldn't have done the formula that Dusty did, which was more of the, squash matches and promos. Watts would have been juicing it up every week. The problem still was that Watts would have died probably quicker trying to tour live events nationally, because he didn't have as big of or as experienced of an office staff as Crockett did.
Now, when you say that, just to jump in real quick, Vince McMahon had an office in Connecticut, had people from outside wrestling that he was hiring left and right. He had a full office, which would only grow. So people understand what was the office structure of Jim Crockett Promotions and Mid-South Sports. How many people were actually working in their offices?
Oh, well, let me do this by memory. Because if you walked into the office of Jim Crockett Promotions on Briarbend Drive in Charlotte on any given Wednesday when we were doing promos for the local, broadcast outlets, the wrestlers, there would be 16 of us between Gene Anderson running it and the wrestlers and Jackie Crockett running the camera and the guys doing promos. And we outnumbered the entire Jim Crockett Promotions office staff by at least twice. There was 3 secretaries in the front corner. There was Sandy Scott. There was Dave Johnson, the accountant, Jimmy Crockett in his office, Dusty in the corner of it next to it, Leonard, the guy that did the overnight dubs and cleaned up, Klondike Bill, did not only, at first they had him doing the rings and maintenance and working out at the ballpark. But when the ballpark went away, then he just came in, and George Harris for a while till he retired. That was, I mean, besides for local promoters like the Murnicks that lived up in I guess they were in Raleigh, or, the local people in the different towns that ran shows at the buildings there, that was the entire office staff. And then they started making deals with people for free. That was the problem. They didn't have a giant office building. It was a converted convenience store. Vince got Titan Tower, right? What the fuck? There's all these floors, all these offices, all these people. Crockett was hiring people in different places as freelancers, and whether they were good, bad, or indifferent, got like Rob Garner to help with syndication or whatever, but it wasn't a giant operation. I was never at Bill Watts's office because I think he had one for a while, but it may have been in his house.
That's what I was thinking too. It was in his house.
I think they had an office address, for a period of time, or maybe just a post office box. And I think McGurk had an office in Tulsa somewhere in the 70s, but Bill Watts' office was in his house for most of that time. And I wasn't even there when toward the end of Mid-South or the end of Universal Wrestling Federation, they started shooting TVs out of Oklahoma and having guys over to shoot promos and stuff. But we did all the TVs in Shreveport at that period of time. So there was not really a Mid-South office. He had a secretary, and she did a lot of phone work and paperwork, but that was it. And that's what I'm saying. And that's another reason wrestling was meant to be territorial and meant to be regional. And these guys were the best at it. And before you say, well, what a nickel and dime operation, Jim Crockett Promotions running an operation like that I just described grossed $20 million in 1986. What is that? 50-something today. Watts's fucking operation in 1984 that I just described, where, he's got an office in his fucking house in Oklahoma that nobody ever sees and a secretary. And then everything else is pretty much done on the road by Grizzly Smith, Jim Ross, whatever the fuck, a few local promoters. What was his best? His best year was 84, but what was that gross? Was it like $8 million or something like that?
I forget the number, but it was certainly his best year, 84.
Because during the period of time that the last Stampede matches was going on, it was a 5-week period. We did a little bit over $1 million in houses. And that was just in 5 weeks that year. So the point is, and it worked. That's the way wrestling needed to be done. And that's why, and the Crockett's were happy doing it. And the family business, that's the only wrestling promotion. Think about this now. When Jim Crockett Sr. started the company in 1933, and because Crockett Sr. had been dabbled in wrestling in the Tri-Cities, in Bristol, Virginia, and Kingsport, Tennessee, he was a salesman for a guy that owned a big appliance dealership there and furniture store, whatever, and it dabbled in wrestling promotion, and then he moved to Charlotte and started his own promotion. And then he died, 40 years later in 73. Crockett sold the company to TBS in 88, so that in 55 years, that's the only major wrestling territory in the United States that was under the same ownership, with no changes, no outside owners. None of the boys ever got a chance to buy in. It was a Crockett family promotion. And I think what in the world only, what the CMLL or whatever their original name was in Mexico would beat that run? You're the expert. Help me.
In terms of a family-owned business without any outside investors for that length of time, probably CMLL, EMLL, whatever you want to call it.
And
there were other family-owned promotions, but just not for that length of time. The
yes,
Eatons and LaBelles in Los Angeles, just not for that length of time, or that success after a while.
Sure, and it Don Owen and most territories also at one point or another, one of the boys was able to buy in, or when the territories really were formed, it was one of the guys had been such a big star on network television that they went back home and they had to, they had the stroke to get in. Vern Gagne, Dick the Bruiser, Eddie Graham, whoever but Jim Crockett Sr. ran that place and he didn't overreach. That was the big, after his death, when John Ringley and then Jimmy Jr. took over, that was the big upgrade of the Carolinas from the regular, consistent tag team territory, local guys kind of business that they had done for all those years, 40 years, to bringing in the best talent and upgrading and George Scott and Wahoo and Valentine and Flair and etc. But Crockett Sr. was content with running his business over the long term successfully. And I think that's what Jimmy Jr. would have wanted to do if it hadn't got so hot. Because the Carolinas for years, besides Greensboro, when they built the Coliseum, they started going into that in the early 60s with the holiday spectaculars and everything. But most of the towns in the Carolinas, they ran, in Virginia, they ran weekly in the smaller buildings or predating when they built the bigger buildings. But they were still running the Park Center in Charlotte that seated like 3,000 into the early 70s, but they'd run them every week. And the top guys, George Becker and Johnny Weaver. George Becker didn't even work a different territory after he went to the Carolinas from the mid-50s on. Nobody in the rest of the country knew who the fuck George Becker was, but he was a household name in the Carolinas. Johnny Weaver, he stayed there for 25 years. And he was the big, in the 60s and early 70s, the big fucking baby face. But if he couldn't get arrested anywhere else in the country. But that's because when the guys got over there, they stayed and people remembered them. And then we've told a story before, but when Jim Sr. passed away, John Ringley, who was his son-in-law, who was Francis's husband, had already been involved in the office and in a promotion, and he was going to be the one to run it. And he's the one that made the call to bring George Scott in as Booker and change the dynamic of the territory to bring in bigger national names and run bigger buildings and expand.
And not just tag teams. It was a tag team territory.
Not just tag teams, because it was a tag team territory, but based on the singles title, that's what Valentine was the key for. But that was a shift of style. And it was kind of a risk because, when you've got a successful territory, you don't normally want to re-educate your fans to what you're doing. It's only when things are the shits and you're grasping at straws, but then sometimes it's too late. But what they did was they took a regional promotion that was already making good, solid, steady money and changed the way that it was presented, upgraded everything, changed the talent. When Ron Fuller did that in Knoxville, he started bringing in some of the top names in the NWA and some of the best talent in Southern wrestling, but because it was different, they had the Wright brothers, Ron and Don Wright and Whitey Caldwell and Don Carson, and those guys that were known in East Tennessee had been drawing 6,000 people outdoors at Shell-Howie Park in 1973, and Ron went through a period of time for several months where he couldn't draw half that at the Coliseum.
And it was a similar thing. He was trying to re-educate those fans because one of the first things he did was bring in wrestlers. He was so influenced by Eddie Graham's style of wrestling, he brought in Danny Hodge. He brought in Dale Lewis, a very different type of wrestler than you would normally see in Eastern Tennessee.
And that was the thing with the tag team matches and six-mans, the Assassins and Kentuckians, and the Assassins were the Bolos in the Carolinas, and the Kentuckians and Nelson Royal and Sandy Scott and Tex, blah, blah, blah. They were more action, but at the same time, they weren't always the great technical workers. There was more Southern style, and that's why when Valentine came in, the first thing he did was sit down and bore him out for a while, because it was a re-education process. Anyway, problem was, before too long, Ringley and Francis Crockett had a falling out over a falling in that he had with another woman. And
wasn't it, am I wrong? It was a stewardess on the plane?
Well, don't say on the plane, on a plane. They didn't have an actual
They didn't have the plane
then.
yet. Okay.
They didn't have a plane then, but it was a stewardess, I think, something like that. One of the, cause they still, even in those days, the top guys would charter planes or small private planes to get over the mountains and take them to the towns and get home because the schedule was crazy. Because in the mid 70s, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling only ran in North Carolina, South Carolina, and not even all parts of Virginia, just most of Virginia. But they would run up to 3 live events every night of the week because they were so wrestling crazy, and they had a huge fucking talent roster to where sometimes you'd be in the same territory with the guy and not see him for 3 or 4 weeks. He'd be up in the Virginia end, you'd be down south in South Carolina. Anyway, So Jimmy Jr. took it over from that point, and they continued the expansion. And, he did a lot of good things without trying to be crazy. Like I said, Vince always wanted to take over the world. That was always his dream from day one. You can tell, and he started talking about it early. Jimmy Crockett, yes, he started going to arenas instead of doing studio TV. He was one of the first promoters to do that. But he bought the Nemo truck, National Electronics Mobile Operation. He bought the Nemo truck, from what I was told, used, and it was a TV truck that was good for the time and got the job done. But if it had been Vince would have been wanting to buy, the goddamn state-of-the-art shit and et cetera, and it paid off in the end. But, they had a TV truck. They had this giant, apparatus set up at the office in Briar Bend in the back room, to where all the dubbing machines, where they did all their tape dubbing. Because what we would do when we went in on Wednesdays to do the local promos, like if you had TV in Pittsburgh, you had 2 3-minute spots. That's the local promos that the people tweet all the time these days, with the chyron down below saying Greensboro this Saturday night, right? Well, what they had done is, after they took the TV truck to Sumter, South Carolina, or Spartanburg, or Gaffney, or Meisenheimer, North Carolina, or somewhere on a Tuesday night within 60 miles of Charlotte, at a high school or a college gym, it would be sold out, often in advance, 1,500, 2,000 people. And that was their chance to see live wrestling in their town. And we would tape 2 hours of television, the syndicated TV, for the following weekend. And it would be NWA Pro, and then Worldwide Wrestling, right? The A and B shows. And then they would immediately drive the truck back. And Crockett had his own TV crew, who weren't really all TV people, but kind of, sort of. Because, Wayne Daniel was one of his producer, director guys, but like Doug Dillinger, who was a Charlotte City police officer, was one of the camera guys. Because he was big enough to hold that camera for 2 fucking hours. That's the background he had in television. And then he ended up being the security guy in WCW. But at least it was the same people on the TV crew all the time, and they knew what they were doing. When we were done, we'd ring the bell at 7:30, first show from 7:45 to 8:45, take a 15-minute break. Second show from 9 to 10, and a fucking dark match at the end. They'd drive the truck back to Charlotte and start doing the overnight dubs in the office. That's where Leonard came in. Leonard was also the guy that called me to tell me they'd thrown a bunch of fucking posters and film away when TBS cleared the office out. That Leonard. And then we'd go in on Wednesday morning, me and the Horsemen and Dusty and Magnum and whoever the top guys were, the Road Warriors, Ellering, Paul Jones, the managers, whatever, JJ. And they would cue those goddamn tapes up that they had rolled all night, making dubs of on all these machines. And we would put the fucking promo for Pittsburgh into the spot that it went in the tape live. We'd roll it in live. That's why they frowned on busted takes. And that's why everybody got good at doing it the first time around regardless, right? And when they finished, they'd put the label on the fucking tape, and Klondike Bill or somebody would run them over to the bus station later on and put them on a bus to Pittsburgh or wherever the TV station was. That's how TV fucking tapes got delivered in those days, and the promos put in. We were talking about Jimmy Crockett, though.
Yeah, and I want to go back to my 2 questions I asked you, but just one.
Did I answer either one of them?
Not one of them. But I did want to also point out, you mentioned how Jim Crockett Sr. really didn't do anything outside of his towns and his territory, with one notable exception, which I've always been fascinated with, where with Antonino Rocca as his top star, he tried to compete against Vince McMahon in New York.
Yes.
Which is fascinating to me, just the idea that he would try that from the Carolinas to try to come into New York and do that.
Well, and I don't know the circumstances, and I didn't even know that this happened. Like, so many of these things have been lost to history. That's why over the last 20 years, I'm glad we've had so many historians dig these things up. When I worked the Carolinas, I didn't know that happened, or I would have asked Jimmy Crockett if what he knew about it. But apparently when Rocca was fading in New York, Vince Sr. replaced him with Bruno. There was obviously a falling out. One can suppose that Rocca wasn't ready to go just yet, go quietly. And he had a pretty healthy ego, probably still thought he was, should be the top guy. But within weeks after Rocca finishes and Bruno wins the title in New York, Argentina Rocca, the biggest gate attraction, one of the biggest gate attractions of the previous 10 years, is main eventing in the Carolinas. That's really the only other territory he ever worked on a regular basis after going to New York in 1950, right? And at that same time, for a brief period of time, some of the guys that were wrestling in the Carolinas, they started running against Vince in was it just the New York market, or was it because back in those days the interstates were new, but if you hop on 95, you go through Washington, Baltimore, Philly, and finally get to New York, and 95 runs right down into the Carolinas. Were they just going up the eastern seaboard, or was it New York centric?
I'm not exactly sure, but it is worth noting here that Vince Sr.'s office, he was centered out of Washington, D.C. still, not New York.
Well, that's true. But they were running the opposition shows in New York, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So both those things are true. But when they had to go, I bet they gave Vince Sr. the fucking finger when they drove through Washington on the way to fucking New York. But anyway, they didn't last long, and that wasn't going to work anyway. And maybe did that set some ill will in motion in 1964 for 20-something years later on when Vince Jr. took over and got the chance to fuck Jim Sr.'s son?
I don't know.
One wonders.
I don't know for sure, but Vince Jr., certainly seemed to take great delight in fucking with Jim Crockett Jr. There are certain guys that Vince Jr. respected and didn't really want to fuck with, but he still wanted their territory, like Bill Watts.
Yeah.
And then there are people like Vern and Jim Crockett Jr. that it seemed to be somewhat personal from Vince Jr. But to go back to my two questions.
What were they? It's been so long.
If Watts gets the TBS time slot, what happens to Mid-Atlantic Wrestling the next several years?
Oh,
and
okay.
Also,
well, I did
is
answer
86 as hot without the national cable television show?
Well, okay, I did answer what would happen to Watts. Watts didn't have the infrastructure to go national either, and it would have been expected, and he would have been caught up in it.
Right, but that's the one everyone always talks about. What would have happened to Watts? But what would have happened to Jim Crockett if he didn't get that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mid-Atlantic was still going to be doing great business in the core territory because the guys that were already there or about to be there when Crockett got the TV, it was still an incredible collection of talent. And we didn't go, me and the Midnight Express, because they got the TBS slot. We already wanted to go before they got it. And we had already started calling when they actually did get it. We've told that story before, but that was the icing on the cake that we were on TBS too, but they had an incredible TV lineup, every major market in the Southeast and a bunch of them across the country that were beginning to blossom. So Mid-Atlantic would have done well, but it wouldn't have been, I don't think 86 overall would have been as hot, although maybe with the best wrestling program in the world on TBS and that incredible talent roster in the Carolinas and that syndicated TV and, everything that Vince was doing, it may still have been hot, but hot in different ways.
Yeah, and that talent roster was the Mid-South talent roster of 1984. Midnight Express, yeah. Rock and Roll, Magnum, Buddy Landel, Terry Taylor, Crusher Khrushchev.
But also, but with the Road Warriors and with Dusty Rhodes and with Barry Windham and with Ric Flair. Yeah. And, so, yeah. It was, and that's, like I said, getting back to Jimmy, that's what got him unfortunately caught up in the big expansion, something that had never been their goal, and that they just felt like they were kind of doing in self-defense. And, I think that's what hastened the downfall more than anything else, is expanding so far. If they hadn't, I agree with the purchase of the UWF was not pie in the sky. They had amazing television coverage, and they did have some value, but buying Kansas City because you feel bad for them, and buying Florida because you feel bad. I don't know how much it was, but they absorbed too much too quick. And trying to still do Kansas City TV tapings and sending a crew to Kansas City and doing the same thing in Florida. If they had just, I can understand acquiring the UWF, like I said, with their television outlets and just the name and the talent contracts, the goodwill, whatever. But the other territories, they were being too nice. And, when Vince did fucking offer to buy a territory from anybody, generally he didn't pay them in the end. So what the fuck? But I think that was the problem. If Crockett had not done that and not bought the information that he had been told that television ad revenue is going to be the wave of the future, and if you have all these TVs, you're going to get all this ad revenue, but then they never found anybody to sell it right, and it didn't come to pass. And
well, he was also told Vince McMahon's going to buy this if you don't, which may not have been true.
Well, yeah.
And then he jumped in. I think it was Jim Ross who told him that, actually.
Well, I'm just talking about the television ad revenue in general, the people that they had selling it, and the concept was somewhat valid, but in execution, it never worked. And
then, of course, he moved his office to Dallas.
Well, and that's another thing, because at that point, I don't know how much ribbon on the square this was, but it was like a lot of the guys were saying that Jimmy moved to Dallas to get away from David and Jackie and Francis because they didn't want him to sell it, or they didn't want to expand like this. And yeah, the Dallas office was... but he was told, oh, you can't be in Charlotte. You have to be in a big media center like Dallas, and look at these beautiful offices we have down here already that we can take clients to. Fuck you. What clients? That was the point. When they started trying to be something they weren't, and they started making less money than when they were running a fucking money-making hand-over-fist business out of a converted convenience store in fucking Charlotte. They tried to get big and national. If they'd have stuck with the converted convenience store and just doing what they were doing without buying the other territories and trying to chase Vince nationwide, they would have been in business for several more years in the Carolinas. Several more years, because instead of suddenly finding out they were a couple $1 million in the hole and not wanting to risk their mother's retirement funds and not wanting to, at that stage of the game, start borrowing money or finding investors to do all this thing, they just said, fuck it, we're just going to sell it. But they would, if they'd stayed in business without being $2 million in the hole from the purchases of those territories and the expansion, they wouldn't have lost $2 million anywhere in the near future at that point, or overnight, or in a short period of time. The business, like all the other territories, it would have started to go down. And there would have been fits and spurts, and you could run an angle and get some back, but it might not. It was like Memphis. You can get 6,000 people in the Coliseum, but only once in a while instead of more than that every week. And I mean, finally, Vince would have exposed everything. The TV, he would have done what he would have done, but Crockett would have lasted several more years in the Carolinas and in the Southeast just because. Well, I mean, look at the people now that still support shitty promotions because they don't want to break up, right? The people in the Carolinas, the core audience, the basic wrestling fans there, would have in decent and probably even profitable numbers supported a non-national promotion in that part of the country for the next few years at least, into the early to mid 90s, and it may not have been as big as what it had been in the 80s, but they would have still been in business and maybe not competitive for the top talent, but they would have been the last place for anybody to go instead of Memphis and Smoky Mountain. That's what I think. Because they were so big in the Carolinas, if they'd have just concentrated on that and wanted to stay in the wrestling business, it would have taken them so long. The Carolinas got killed because TBS just ran off and left them and not only presented. Crockett would not have presented a shit product that TBS presented in the early 90s. Crockett would not have turned off the fans that they had in the Carolinas in the early 90s like TBS did. I know Crockett started it with Moving Starcade, but that was part of that whole expansion thing. It would have taken quite a while to kill that territory, even if you were trying to, which actually they kind of were trying to when TBS bought it, and it still took, a year and a half to kill the Carolinas. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Greensboro bottomed down, I think, 91, so that makes sense. But question for you, and Ric Flair, by the way, has always said that he thought that, I mean, I don't know if I would go this far, but if they hadn't tried to expand Crockett Promotions, they'd be in business today. Which I don't know about today, but to your point, what you were just saying, certainly a few years longer than they were.
Yeah.
But when the purchase happened in 88, Jim Crockett Jr. signed a deal where he was going to be, I don't know what the exact role was, an executive, a consultant with Crockett, with Turner Broadcasting.
A consultant. He was going to be a consultant. Then they never consulted with him.
Right. After that initial run where he was the booker before George Scott got there, which was when he hated Randy Rose. But a few years later, 93, his contract came up, and there was so much talk around wrestling. What's Jim Crockett going to do? He's going to do something. And he partnered up with Paul Heyman, which was surprising. And that was when they were going to try to do something together. It didn't work out. He was going to be involved with ECW. It was going to be the WWN, I think it was. And then he started the NWA again in 94, or I shouldn't say started the NWA, as an NWA promoter, started promoting again using the name NWA. They did a first taping in East Tennessee in Chattanooga, and then
using my ring.
You were there. You were there for that.
I was not there. My ring was there.
I got a picture of you there at the monitor with Jim Crockett Jr.
What?
I can show you this picture. It was in a Japanese magazine. But
God damn it, I don't remember being there.
He then went to Dallas and did his tapings in a Sportatorium, which was just wrestling death in the early to mid 90s. Anything in a Sportatorium. They had some talent that were in and out of that building, but it was not good. It was dark and it felt it. But did you think that he really was going to make some big comeback?
I'd like to say, oh yes, but actually, oh no. I was looking at what we were doing. I was looking at what everybody else in wrestling was doing. And then I was looking at Jim Crockett trying to start a new TV at that point with some of the people that he had on the TV, which was basically people from everywhere that weren't really, I mean, he had some of my guys, and also, and Ricky and Robert came back and said, well, he tried to steal us away for the next taping, because the following taping was we had, dates in Smoky Mountain, and they said, well, we can't do that. And Crockett got mad because they wouldn't come and do his TV. So, all the money I made y'all. Ricky said, yeah, but this is actually where we're working now. That was fucking 6 years ago. Anyway.
He should have asked for the fan club money. Well, where's our fan club money?
There was still some heat over that. I thought that he was doing it probably just because he felt bad the way that the previous one worked out, and that's what he'd done or been around most of his life, and he wanted to do it again. But I didn't see it. The TV he was doing with the talent he was doing and the money he was spending, I didn't see it being any more or less successful than any of the rest of us with what we were doing. Also at that point, he did the first taping in East Tennessee just because I think he got Ronnie West to help promote it for him. It actually wasn't East Tennessee. It was down in It was around Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Was it in Chattanooga itself?
I think it was.
In Ringgold?
I thought it was in Chattanooga, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Yeah, but Chattanooga is really not East Tennessee. It's South Tennessee. Anyway, but then I'm like, well, what the fuck is he going to run to Chattanooga? Well, no, because he lives in Dallas, and they were just doing a TV tape in the air. As I said, I think because Ronnie West was going to promote the live event portion of it. But then I'm like, well, what is your territory going to be? See, everybody thought, well, Crockett's going to do TV again. He's going to get the blah, blah, blah. What's your territory going to be? Are you trying to do national TV? In that case, then I'm going to, write this off right now. If you are going to open a territory, I'm interested, but Dallas, I'm not interested because it's dead. So I honestly really didn't hold out a lot of hope that this was going to be a game-changing endeavor that Jimmy was in.
When was the last time you saw him?
The last time I talked to him during that period, that was the last time that I talked to him. And he was running it because I guess for something to do, because the Crockett still had some money. But when he moved to Dallas, he got an ice cream shop. And I was talking to him about the first taping where we were working out using the ring and et cetera, et cetera. And he said, hold on a second. I heard he said it'd be $2.95 or whatever. Ding, ding. He was running the cash register at his ice cream store. And I'm pretty sure those days, that's probably the last time that I've talked to him. He with the exception of what was it, one of the big Mark Fests a few years ago that he made an appearance at. He's done no appearances. You'd see David every once in a while. I've seen David just a year or two ago, and Jackie, saw him in Charlotte when we did the NWA pay-per-view, and Francis, but you never saw Jimmy, and he just, I guess, he probably didn't want to go back over relitigating, the closing days of Crockett Promotions at every fan fest in the world.
Yeah, I believe he was the only one in the family who didn't. Well, I shouldn't say the only one, but I think David blamed Dusty, and Jim Crockett Jr. actually didn't, surprisingly.
Well, that's the way he did do an interview years back where he, and I respected him for that. He said, hey, it was my fault. And he said he can't even blame Dave Johnson, the accountant, which is true. You blame Dave Johnson for being a shitty accountant, but you can blame Jimmy Crockett for employing a shitty accountant. So it was he did take the responsibility for the way the things went. But as I said, it's kind of not fair in hindsight because it wasn't what he wanted to do to begin with. It was not his goal to rule the wrestling world. He wanted to run Crockett Promotions in the Carolinas, and everybody would have been fine with that. Me too. Like I said, I'd have stayed there forever.
Well, certainly we both, and I'm sure all the listeners, hope that things turn out for the best, that somehow he gets better. We've heard, that he's in bad condition, but you never know. And certainly we all hope for the best for Jim Crockett Jr. But Jim, go ahead.
I was about to say we've got questions on this program, don't we?
We do, but I think a lot of the fans that listen to the show primarily to hear you talk about AEW or WWE, they may go, what is all this history stuff? What is this wrestling history? I want to tune it out. I want to listen to something else. So they may have this show playing, but maybe they have something else they're listening to right now.
Oh, good God, just quit now. You have shit the bed with that one. There is no discernible segue whatsoever that you can set up now that you have made from that word salad that you have just vomited. So I will go with this, folks. Whatever you do, buy some Raycon wireless earbuds. The folks at Raycon have changed the game. Whether you're catching up on your favorite news podcast, binging an audio book, powering through your workout with a pumped-up playlist, you stick these Raycon earbuds in your ears, it makes all the difference. There's no wires or stems, things dangling out of your head. You don't look weird. They're built to perform anywhere, anytime. Water, sweat-resistant construction, pairs quickly with Bluetooth. Regardless of what color your teeth are, you can pair them up, all of them. And they've got enough battery life for 6 hours of playtime. Great sound with earbuds starting at half the price of other premium audio brands. And folks, right now, Raycon is offering 15% off all their products for my listeners. And here's what you've got to do to go get it. Go to buyraycon.com. That's BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE. That's it. You get 15% off your entire Raycon order, so you can buy a pair and a spare. Or if you're like my Aunt Myrtle, she had that third ear. Before she had it taken care of, she needed 3 earbuds, regardless.
What?
I told you about Myrtle. 15% off. At Buy Raycon, she could hear a mouse pissing on cotton, I'll tell you that. Buyraycon.com/JCE. Buyraycon.com/JCE. 15% off. Don't be like Myrtle.
That's right. They're great. 6 hours of playtime. Tantric ear pleasure with Raycon. But Jim, let's get some questions here on the show.
Tantric ear pleasure?
Well, 6 hours of playtime. This question was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. Let me try to read this one. Hello, fellow humans. I'm a longtime listener. I'm so sorry. I'm a longtime listener.
Somebody needs to clip that. I'm so sorry. And use it somewhere else.
I'm a longtime listener from You Mataraz, Herpes.
What? What did you just say?
Let me try this again. Hello, fellow humans. I'm a longtime listener from You Mataraz, Herpes, country of Chad.
Now, how do you spell that?
Which part? Y-U, and then a separate word, M-A-D-E-R-A-Z, and then a comma, herpes, H-I-R-U.
Herpes?
H-I-R-U-P-E-S.
That's a herpes.
That's what I said.
That's what she said. All right.
Country of Chad.
Oh, well, hello, Chad.
No, his name is You Mataraz.
Oh. No, I thought that was the town.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm a longtime listener. Does he give his name here?
I certainly hope so.
Emmanuel Lavore. Okay.
I was hoping it would be Putz McGee, but go ahead.
Just curious as to why Jim hates The Miz, but loves MJF, when the general consensus is that MJF is a discount version of The Miz.
What?
Also, The Miz is not known for doing things that embarrass wrestling as a whole, and also looks the part and can work properly and safely.
What?
Also, if I remember correctly, Cornette hated The Miz winning the championship. Wouldn't that mean The Miz did his job properly of being the duplicitous, despicable, non-bald heel by winning the championship via deceit and a dishonorable tactic of cashing in after the previous match?
That's it?
That's
wow,
everything from Herpes.
At least he's been going to the English classes over there in Chad and its sister country, Jeremy. For all you 60s pop fans, the countries of Chad and Jeremy. I'll try that again. Anyway, oh my God, where do I start? First of all, The Miz, MJF doesn't look like a frog. Now, I hesitate to say anything good about MJF because, of course, whenever I praise anyone, then they invariably disappoint me and do stupid things. Last time I was praising MJF, he suddenly did discount dinner theater. But come on, seriously. At least MJF, besides the verbal delivery, which sounds like a real prick rather than a play prick, no, Miz didn't get heat with me because he won the title like a heel heat. He got heat with me because you put your fucking world title on that kind of heat is what he got with me. I'm sorry, I don't say, and here's another thing. I'm not advocating for MJF to be the WWF champion either. He He's certainly a fine physical specimen over at All Petite Wrestling, but let's not go crazy. I don't think he needs to be, as a singles competitor, kicking a shit out of fucking Drew McIntyre or whoever they've got on top over there. But for God's sake, at least as a personality, he comes off as more believable and less annoying in a he's playing heel wrestler way and more annoying in a he is really a heel way. Does that did we lead Chad through something that he might be able to pick up on there?
I hope so. I mean, even with all the hokey bad stuff MJF has been involved with for the past 6 months or so, there's a general overall fakeness and hokiness to The Miz.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I like Morrison. Morrison standing there next to him. He looks like a fucking rock star. Or he actually looks like he should take the part in Jesus Christ Superstar. But he's got the rock and roll hair and the beard. He's got the fucking body. He's got a fucking outfit. He wears clothes. And then there's goddamn frog-faced simpleton next to him that's trying to be a bad guy wrestler on purpose. I don't know what else to say.
All right. Well, our next question, Jim.
You know, some of my comments, Brian, may be inflammatory.
Oh, yeah.
When they may be inflammatory, but sometimes the people that get inflamed, and you know the parts of the people that I'm talking about that get flamed up the most, sometimes those people may get inflamed because they are comments that are being directed at them rather than comments I'm directing at somebody else, or maybe comments I'm directing at somebody they like instead of directing comments at somebody they hate. You know what the operative word in all that is? Comments being directed. I didn't give my Cameo update yet. I'm so excited about this. You took me in a different direction, but you don't even know this. I haven't told you this yet. Hotchkiss Featherbottom came over yesterday, took the phone out of the box. We've worked the phone, the video, everything works great. We did our test run. We uploaded stuff to the folks at Cameo. Everything's working perfectly. And I am standing here ready, willing, and able to say anything or almost anything. I will say anything to anybody that's not illegal. I'm advertising, I'm making that statement, that blanket statement.
Are there any other things?
Anything to anybody on Cameo that's not illegal.
Anything. So if Tony Khan buys a Cameo to have you say, I love AEW Dynamite, watch it every week, it's the best.
Well, now, you've got to have principles. If somebody wants to be a jolly joker and try to get me to say things that are obviously contrary to my principles and my beliefs as a human being, then naturally I'll have to do 1 or 2 or 3 minutes on how silly they were to ask me that after giving me the money already. But nevertheless, but you know, these new cameras on these phones, holy mackerel. I wish I'd have had these to do the Smoky Mountain television show. I could have saved a truck. Just shoot it with the phone. The video, what is it? The iPhone 13 that I've got? What's the newest one? What are they up to? What number?
That may be it.
Whatever it is, if it's 12 or 13, I can't remember. Holy shit, it looks better than my eyesight. Hotchkiss shot me, and you know, we thought we were going to have one wrinkle in this Cameo situation. In that, I found out Hotchkiss he's not supposed to cross state lines, and he lives in southern Indiana. But we got that worked out because his brother used to be a welder, and we got the thing off his ankle. But Hotchkiss come over and shot some video with this thing, and me in my office here in front of the wall with all of my pictures and everything, and I looked at it back, and it looked better on video than it did when I was actually looking at the wall. It's amazing. So I get the folks, they heard on the experience, but they don't know if they don't listen to the experience. The cameos, the long-awaited cameos, will be going on sale Sunday, March the 7th at noon Eastern time. Sunday, March 7th at noon Eastern time. And we're going to put 50 up. And that's when we've sold 50. We're taking it back down. They will not be available after that because we're going to do these first 50 and evaluate our situation. The video's looking great. We just don't know yet whether this will be a giant pain in the ass on my end. So anyway, you go to cameo.com/Jim Cornette on Sunday, March 7th at noon Eastern, and there will be 50 personalized video messages for you, your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, whoever, available for sale. Somebody else, your birthday, somebody's anniversary, go fuck yourself, whatever the case. I await your instructions, and you get 250 characters on the Cameo website to tell me a little bit about what you want me to say to the people you want me to say it to. You think it's going to work, Brian?
It's exciting. I can't wait to see how these turn out. We may have to put some of them on the YouTube channel, I think, because a lot of people are going to want to see these. They're going to be hot commodity.
Hot commodity.
I do think you need to raise the price.
No, they're $149. That's
ridiculous.
No, you're greedy.
Well, yeah.
Let's face it. Cameo takes a nice chunk, and Hotchkiss doesn't work for free, and my time is somewhat limited, so there has to be some compensation involved. But I want to make sure that it's something that everybody, the people out there, can do, as even if it's a special occasion. It's not just like pie in the sky. Some people are charging $1,000 or whatever. That's just ridiculous. I'm not going to be doing that. I don't know. After the first 50, I may not be doing it at all. Let's say we did one and it worked out okay, but we'll see what happens with 50. Anyway, and then a week later, by the way, folks, for those of you who've been keeping an eye on this, the action figure collectors in the audience, Sunday, March 14th, the Cornette's Collectible Store at JimCornette.com reopens with both the original red and yellow action figure and the Christmas red and green variant action figure available. This is the last run of both of these from Figures Toy Companies. Figures Toy Company, and once these are gone, they're gone. This time, we're limited to 1,500 each for the calendar year of 2021. So we will see but we got extra server, and I've been told by Figures Toy Company the ship is docking any day. Apparently there's been some headwinds between here and China, but the ship is docking any day, and I'm going to have those in my grubby little hands. The store opens Sunday, March 14th.
For Cameo, you going to wear a suit, or are you going to wear your Cornette face T-shirt and track pants?
You hit the bullseye there, pal. I'm going to be Jim Cornette, not TV Jim Cornette. These are personal video messages. I'm going to be regular Jim Cornette, comfy Jim Cornette, not face painted Sting.
There's where we could jack up the prices. If you want TV Jim Cornette, $300.
But that means I got to put the suit on.
For $300, it's worth it.
Well, but then there's deductions, and then there's tax. By the time you pay Cameo and you pay Hotchkiss and you pay tax on this money, I'd be putting a suit on for $14.72. I'm in a high tax bracket.
Well, on that topic, real quick here, Jim, I was going to play some cameos later in the show because we haven't done that in several weeks, but I did want to play one here. A recent sensation sweeping the Cornette Nation has been listeners buying cameos for you.
I know. I hope as many people will buy a cameo from me as have bought them for me.
It will be interesting if people, buy one for Coco Beware. Like, hey, Coco, it's me. And you can communicate this way now, back and forth.
Yeah, we can talk to each other. Hey, Coco. And I'll ask him a question. And then somebody's got to buy me a cameo from him so he can answer it.
But to that point, the way it works is, the way it's going to work with you when you start these on March 7th, the way it's worked with the ones we've reviewed, that it's on Cameo, and Cameo is why it's called a cameo. I'm going to play this. I think he means well, but one of the listeners sent in what he's saying is a cameo, but it's clearly, it's not on Cameo. It's just him cutting a promo with a couple of wrestlers. Here's the email. This is from Sal. I attended an autograph meet and greet, and this became the best way to get Jim a freelance personalized cameo while cutting out the middleman, and $45 got me 3 legends of the original ECW. For the record, everyone was wearing a mask, rubbing their hands with disinfectant sanitizer, and temperatures were checked upon entering the wrestling-themed business known as Jimmy's World Order. in East Los Angeles, California.
Jimmy's World Order.
Well, here is a cameo from Sal, along with Bill Alfonso, the Sandman, and Joel Gertner.
Hey, Brian and Jim, I just bumped into these three animals over here in East LA. They want us to say a little something for you.
That's right, Jim Cornette. I remember one night in 1982, you came down with your two tag champs and tried to bribe me in the ring. You gave me a wad of money so I can call it for you. And I threw it to the audience, and you got mad at me, Daddy. So listen, come down here and get a piece of my boy, and we can straighten all that big mess out after all these years, Jim Cornette.
Yeah, Cornette, you think you're hardcore, you think you're extreme, buddy. We gotta stop meeting like this.
Jim Cornette, you are a legend. You are one of the best talkers in the business. I have always idolized you and admired your work and learned from you from afar. You've always been kind to me, but Jim, one thing. You mentioned that my cameo, which you enjoyed listening to, might be overpriced at $50. And Ian Riccaboni, you said, was charging $10, and maybe he and I should meet in the middle and both charge $30. Let me tell you, Ian Riccaboni is amazing. I love him too. He should be charging $50, just like me, just like this cameo that we have put together here live at the in-store for Jimmy's World Order in East Los Angeles. Our cameos, mine, Fonzie's, Sandman's, are worth 10 times what we charge. Yeah. Bargain at twice the price. The gift that keeps on giving. So I love you. I just wish you wouldn't just like my cameos. I wish you would love them, because they're worth $50. I put my heart and soul into them, and I try to treat my clients well.
Well, there it is.
This poor guy, he paid Gertner. Gertner did a commercial for his own other shit. Way to go, Joel. That was fucking perfect.
The Sandman hitting a vape pen the entire time, so he's enjoying himself out in East Los Angeles. Bill Alfonso saying that he remembers you trying to pay him off in 1982 of all years.
Yeah, well, it was a couple of years later than that. But also, and just by the way, also, it is, you were right, it is only a cameo because it's on the website Cameo. When you just shoot something and just send it to somebody, that's different. But no, it was in, oh, God damn it. One of the first times we probably went to Florida, but 85 or 86, whatever. But I remember this actually, because Fonzie, but see, a lot of people just know Bill Alfonso as the manager and, Weasley guy in ECW, but Fonzie was a referee, just a straight referee in the Florida territory for years before that. And so anyway, we were down there, and I remember now that he said that, because I've done this like a few times, but I remember with him specifically, because I know you may find this hard to believe, Brian, but one of the first things that I would do when I got to a building was find somebody to run the concession stand for me, get me a hot dog and a fucking drink, right? So generally when I would go to the ring, I would have 6 or 7 or 8 $1 bills or whatever in my pocket where I'd got change from the concession stand. And this, I've done it with Tommy Young. I did it with Hildebrand one time. If you get in a fucking jaw-jacking session with the referee, I'm getting in the ring, the boys are entering, before the match, we're doing whatever, the referee comes up to me, if anybody notices, or we're killing time because the baby faces are on the way to the ring or out in the parking lot getting a blowjob or whatever, I'd pull some money, an obvious wad of money, but it's like all ones, out and try to pay the referee off, right, in front of the people, just to keep him occupied. And on his one night, I told him, I said, take it and throw it out. What? I said, take it. It's like $7. Take it and throw it out. And he grabbed it and he threw it out to the people, and everybody started diving on it, the kids and everything. I've told that story from Memphis where me and Jimmy Hart and had a match with Bobby Eaton where they were supposedly throwing $5,000 out. That didn't end well, but His was a little wad of dollar bills, and the kids went grabbing at it and everything, and I fucking pitch a fit at Fonzie, and he runs behind the baby faces and blah, blah, blah. But yes, he threw my $7 away.
All right, well, let's get some more questions. So
that's the kind of thing I've got to beat on Cameo, huh? I'm going to have to unleash a verbal assault of epic proportions, like I'm pummeling you about the ears with chairs, chains, bottles, rocks, bricks, sticks, pots, pans, and tin cans to beat stuff like that.
Now with you on Cameo, other people are throwing their money away.
Hey, goddammit, wait a minute now.
Tantric ear pleasure.
Phrase it like that. Tantric ear pleasure. There you go. I see, if you'd have waited for the Raycon, that would have been a fucking great segue.
Well, let's get another question here. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Andrew in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Speaking of old wrestling cities where they have television shows, Bridgeport.
Speaking of the most run-down, slum-ridden, dangerous city in America, Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Hello, Jim and Brian.
Remember during the Attitude Era when they did the Raw promotional pieces where they had all those wild pit bull dogs barking behind chain link fences in front of old broken down warehouses that had graffiti painted all over them?
Yeah.
They just drove up to Bridgeport. That was not a fucking set. That was just a place in Bridgeport.
Well, let's go to Andrew's question here. Hello, Jim and Brian. First, I recently listened to a Kenny Omega interview.
Well, there was your first mistake.
And he was asked if Triple H gains more power, do you believe that it will open the door for the companies together? Kenny responds, and these are all quotes, I'm assuming they're real.
Did he say it just like that? Will it open the door for the companies together?
It says. The quote here is, if Triple H gains more power, do you believe that it will open the door for the companies together?
No, I think
Who is this interviewer?
It'll open the door singly, first for one company and then for the other company, but both companies can't go through the same door together.
Is the interviewer from Chad? That's what I'd like to know.
Or Jeremy.
Here's Kenny's response. Well, there are two perspectives. On one side, you have the boys who are always excited to work with new talent.
Say it like that. Read it like
I'm trying to do it in the Kenny voice.
Read it like Kenny would do it, like this, like the breathiness, like the phone sex line. Yes, it's like this, more of this, and this, and this.
Well, there are two perspectives. On one side, you have the boys who are always excited to work with new talent, and most of them are friends. However, wrestling is a business, and a lot of people live and die by how the promotion goes. I understand how you need to take an educated guess on how your I can't do this, on how your own company does, but the fans will win. So who cares which company does better? Both companies will increase, and there will be no losers in the battle. Now, when I spoke to Triple H, it really felt like he understood a lot of my thought process. I may not wear a suit.
Oh, boy.
And punch out a clock.
In that case, Triple H needs to call and get some therapy. If he understood anything about Twinkle Toes' thought process, he needs to have his brain rewired.
Or Triple H is actually really good at his job and able to convince a guy like Kenny Omega that he understands his thought process. We really don't know. I may not wear a suit and punch out a clock and crunch numbers. I also care about making our consumers happy. With him being one of the boys for almost 20 years, he definitely understands the fans' perspective. And you could tell he incorporates that in his program.
I don't know that any of this makes sense, but does that statement make sense? Since he's been one of the boys for 20 years, he can understand the fans' perspective. Since I've been an arsonist for the past 20 years, I can understand the fire department's perspective.
And you could tell he incorporates that in his program. When he says we're open for business, I think when a certain situation is eliminated, as well as worries and fears, I do see this as a reality.
Is he on fucking LSD? What?
When a certain situation is eliminated, is he talking about Vince?
I guess.
Well, here are the questions that Andrew attached here. What are Jim's thoughts on what Kenny had to say?
I don't understand it. That's my thoughts. I know those are English words because I've heard a lot of them before, but never in that order. I don't know what his point was or what he's saying or blathering on about.
Does a merger like that happen when Vince is gone?
A merger? Yeah, I understand it. Next, Lipton Tea is going to merge with the fucking girl down the street that's got the lemonade stand. As soon as they work out all the fucking, compensation and everything for the executives of the various companies, the lemonade stand people are really holding out for a great benefits package.
Is Triple H really interested in doing this?
No.
Who will benefit from this?
Nobody.
Well, no, you shouldn't say that. AEW will benefit from it.
Won't. Nobody's going to benefit because it won't fucking happen. First it was work together, and then now it's been phrased a merger. No. I got news for you. Whether it's a merger or whether they just are going to bump into each other in line at the mall, no. The WWE will not now nor ever, whether in Vince's lifetime or in the 7 centuries immediately following that, will they ever work with AEW. And everybody that has any sense and reason knows that. And yes, AEW would work with WWE in a heartbeat, because then Tony Khan could win another award for the Meltzer Peace Prize and next year's Wrestling Observer Awards for brokering peace between the two giant promotions. And they would probably do it for $1 and fucking catering, just so they could brag that they had a co-promotion with the WWE. But the WWE would laugh at the idea of, they didn't do any co-promotions with any other promotion in history. They're going to do one with these chuckle fucks. Does anybody think it's really going to happen now that they're just, or they know they're just doing verbal masturbation here?
Well, this is the second interview like this that we've heard from an executive vice president in AEW. Cody also, we just did that one last week.
Yeah.
Where he was saying how, he's open to it, and I mean, of course he is.
Yes. I'm open to me getting to fuck Pamela Anderson twice a day, every day for the rest of my life. I am entirely open to that. I don't know how the negotiations will go on Pamela's side.
What do you think, knowing Triple H a little bit? I mean, you haven't really been around him in years. What do you think he thinks sitting down with Kenny Omega and talking to him, and Kenny's laying out his views on the world of wrestling, and he thinks Triple H agrees with him?
Fucking empty-headed, fucking Harpo Marx looking twat is one of the most fucking lost balls and high weeds that I've ever spoken to, and I've spoken to a bunch of them. That's what he was fucking thinking. He's thinking he's a fucking artiste, and he's a mental case, and he'd be high fucking maintenance, and that's why he is no longer in and was not in very long the developmental program to begin with. Because he's an artiste, he's a mental case, and he's obviously high maintenance. And if you fucking turn your back on him, he'll be off in the parking lot doing fucking Canadian destroyers with a blow-up sex toy.
All right, well, let's get another question here. This next one was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Tom. Let's see if the third time is the charm on getting a question to Jim.
Wait a minute, this is third time Tom?
Third time Tom has apparently sent this question in.
Congratulations, Tom.
In 2015, I attended a Monday Night Raw taping in Boston. I had ringside seats. Sitting next to me appeared to be 2 strippers. When me and my friend began talking to the ladies, their guy friends said they were hired by WWE to bring the wrestlers, quote, entertainment. Is it possible escorts were hired by wrestlers to hang out after the shows? I doubt my question will be read, but it felt like a good one, maybe.
Oh my God. Well, no, first of all, the office isn't going to hire any escorts for the boys. If that was ever going to happen, it would have happened in the 90s. And I assure you it didn't. We had to pay for every single one we got on our own. They have been known in the Attitude Era especially, or if it was called for, to salt the audience with models for some issue, for some purpose. But there apparently was no purpose because they didn't get involved in the show. There was, there wasn't Rick Rude coming by or whatever that the girl has to stand up and hug or whatever. So I would assume that the guys that were with the alleged strippers, and we do not know if that was indeed their occupation, not that there's anything wrong with that, but since the guys that were with them were probably the ones that were actually footing the bill, they were trying to, much like the wrestling cousins that we've spoken about here recently, they were trying to impart to these guys that they were telling us stuff to, that they were a bigger part of the show than they actually are. And also to keep them from knowing that they were the ones that paid those girls to be sitting in those seats next to them.
All right. Well, let's move away from that one.
But now, you know what? That would have been, because I would have lobbied for that if I was still full-time. I'd say, hey, instead of paying for fucking rehab, because I ain't never going to need that, why don't you pay for some of our fucking hookers? Because I'm in regular need of that.
And clearly Pamela Anderson isn't interested.
And Pamela Anderson will not get back to me. That night she was there. What was that? That was a pay-per-view.
Royal Rumble, I think, and then it was WrestleMania.
She was standing there at the gorilla position at one time, looking at the monitor, and I was gonna walk up and look as closely as possible without being obtrusive or anything. And she looked like she was worse pilled up than some of the boys on the fucking show. She just looked like she was kind of in la-la land. When she walked down the fucking hallway, she more or less floated. So I don't know what her deal was. She probably wasn't very interested about being there anyway.
Our next question, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Carter in Spokane, Washington.
Spokane! We were just trying to think of the name of that shitty snow-covered town.
And actually, this isn't a question. I'm reading ahead a little bit. Let me read this. I am writing you, not with a question, but with an appeal to reason. You have recently taken up referring to the Young Bucks as twinks. This is quite offensive to me as a gay man who once qualified as a twink, but who has now aged out and can no longer meet the qualification prerequisites. Good sir, the Young Bucks are in no way twinks. A twink is a pretty boy, 18 to 22 years old, with a slender build. The Young Bucks are skinny fat and balding. I implore you to simply type the word twink into your favorite search engine or movie site for an accurate representation. Perhaps I can suggest an alternative nickname for the Bucks by making a slight alteration to you, the Old Twinks. I send this to you with only love and as a fan of both shows. Once again, Carter from Spokane, Washington.
Well, Carter, I am suitably chastened here over this dressing down that you've given me over misrepresenting twinks, and I will not do that again. I just thought of something in the twink of an eye, but I won't do it again.
Well, the Young Bucks are known for being rather sensitive about everything. And unfortunately, they can certainly take care of their injuries. There are many, many injuries from doing stupid things in the ring with Omax, but Omax can't do anything about hurt feelings.
I remember when you used to be able to segue with the best of them, Brian, when you had those seamless segues going.
When was
that? When something would just flow. It would just flow out like diarrhea, like a voluminous outpouring of diarrhea out of a Crohn's disease-ridden hooker's ass. You would just flow from one thing to another seamlessly.
A hooker with Crohn's disease? A hooker with Crohn's disease?
Now that I've just compared one of our favorite sponsors to a hooker with Crohn's disease, I will elaborate further. Folks, if you have a pain in your ass from listening to Brian Lash's shitty segues, I got a way that you can fix all your aches and pains. Everybody knows that we love the folks at Omax and the cryo-freeze that they manufacture, and we've talked about many of their fine products, the Sport Recovery Cream and the one-a-day CBD supplement, but it comes all down, when you think about it, to the all-star, the world champion of the Omax lineup, the Omax Cryo-Freeze CBD Pain Relief Roll-On. It's an all-natural topical pain reliever that ices out the pain with a 1-2 punch of super cold menthol and hemp CBD. And we've mentioned it. You can roll it on your back, your neck, your hands, any painful area. Do not put this on or up your sphincter. Otherwise than that, every area that hurts, this can be rolled on, and it blocks the pain, reduces the inflammation, improves your muscle and joint flexibility. It doesn't stink bad. It's nice menthol, clears your sinuses out. It doesn't stink bad like some of these other greasy creams. And folks, right now, Omax is offering our listeners 20% off a 1-month supply of Omax Cryo-Freeze or any product site-wide. Go to Omax, O-M-A-X health.com today and enter the code DRIVE, omaxhealth.com. Enter the code DRIVE, 20% off Omax Cryo-Freeze Pain Relief Roll-On or anything on the site. And we've mentioned people with artificial joints, artificial hips, knee replacements, all kinds of things. This is the only thing that helps them feel better. It can help you feel better too. omaxhealth.com, enter code DRIVE and rub this shit on all over your body. Because actually, Brian, you should take a bath in this because you're just one big pain.
Well, Jim, let's see how painful the rest of these questions this week are for you. This next one was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Billy in British Columbia. Since they own almost everything else except Bugs Bunny and SNL, do you think that Disney would ever be interested in purchasing WWE?
Well, they're going to have to fight NBC, aren't they? If that's the case, then there could be a bidding war. God, can you imagine what wrestling would look like if Disney owned it when they already have to go back and fucking take Uncle Remus out of Song of the South?
But what would they even do? I mean, they bought Marvel and they bought Pixar and they've bought Lucasfilm, and now they own the rights to Luke Skywalker and Spider-Man and Toy Story, all these things they own outright. You buy WWE, you own the gimmick of The Undertaker. You're just going to have generic Undertakers walking around Disney World.
That's what I was thinking. Also, maybe they might take the last step to computer generation and just fuck the live wrestlers. Let's just make them up. That's probably where they're going anyway. And they might do a better job. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if any major conglomerate wanted to buy the WWE just because it looks like major conglomerates want to buy everything. And, entertainment always suffers. Any form of entertainment always suffers when it gets too big, and then business people find out that they can make a ton of money at it, and then they get in it and fuck it all up. And I mean, that's not exclusive. We've just been talking about some of that with TBS, but you've got a background in music with the record. When was music more innovative and good and soulful and fun or whatever? Right before it starts making a lot of money, and then they kill everything, and then they start having fucking fake bands that lip sync, and whether it's the Archies or Milli Vanilli or whatever, and it just anytime something gets too good or too profitable, people come in and fuck it up to try to make it better.
It is interesting with WWE because let's say Disney bought it. Let's say NBC bought it. Let's say it's not The Rock with a group of investors. Then you're more than likely have people in charge who have no knowledge of how wrestling really works, maybe believe whatever they hear on the earnings report. And
or on the internet.
Or on the internet, maybe, at best. But that's the thing, good or bad with Vince McMahon, it's one guy running it. When all of a sudden it becomes 1990 TBS, and they say, who can we hire to run this? I know, Jack Petrick. Who's he going to hire to run it? He has a friend, Jim Herd.
His wife has a friend.
His wife has a friend who's married to a guy who used to work at Pizza Hut. That's right. That's where it becomes interesting with a potential WWE sale. Because unless they keep Triple H on board. Imagine if they bought it and they decided to get rid of Triple H and put Shane in charge. I mean, we really don't know.
Well, and that wouldn't be just the craziest thing ever in the world. I mean, we talked about this with NBC or whoever, if Vince would sell here not long ago, and I said probably just if he could get more money than the UFC got, just to have the record sale of something like this. But if they did buy it and Triple H got hit by a bus the next day, Shane McMahon would be a whole lot more respectful of the company itself and try to do a better job than just some jack-off CEO that they hired from Dick's Sporting Goods because, he had a nice resume.
That's what happened to Apple. Steve Jobs hired the guy who ran Pepsi, thinking, oh, we got our CEO. This guy's great. Next thing you know, Steve Jobs leaves the company. He didn't want anything to do with it. They went the wrong direction for years.
Well, and that's the thing is Shane, I've said before, Shane's my favorite McMahon, but he, besides Linda, of course, doesn't have the wrestling mind necessarily that Vince did, or that even maybe that Stephanie does because of her intimate conversations for so long with Triple H, who really kind of knows what he's doing. But Shane would be respectful of the company, the respectful of the guys, respectful of what his dad did, even if he wasn't going to be old time wrestling. He wouldn't turn it into a dog and pony show, or at least willingly. And he would want it. He would have a personal vested interest. It's part of his legacy more than just some guy that was hired, right? But what did you just say? You could have said they could turn it over to somebody that has no idea about the product and no way to run things. No, that's the competition. That's what they've got right now is a competition with a guy that has no idea what he's doing and no idea how to run this thing. It could be
But
worse.
He's a wrestling fan. I mean, that's my point. If you all of a sudden
But that's worse.
Just an executive who knows nothing about wrestling.
That's worse.
And doesn't trust any of the wrestling people. Well, I don't know who they are anymore in that company.
Well, but here's the thing. That's worse. Because in the shit sweepstakes, a complete fan with no knowledge of the inside of the business, only from the outside, and who is not a take charge person who's not going to take any shit and listens to everybody's input, is worse than the completely oblivious CEO who knows nothing about wrestling but is not doing it because he's a fucking fan. And even that guy might stand a better chance of hiring somebody that knows what they're doing than the guy who's just having a ball and is thrilled to be there. So what you need is a person with experience in wrestling who also wants the thing to succeed for more than just either financial reasons for themselves or something to put on their resume. You don't need fans that are easily led. Anybody from Dixie Carter to Tony Khan, where the guy's sitting there pouring the wine and, hey, I'm great and my friends are great. You don't need that, and you don't need some oblivious idiot like Jim Herd who was hired because his wife was friends with a guy that was able, with the wife of a guy that was able to give him a job. You need people experienced in wrestling that want to make money and want the company to succeed, but also want to do something positive and have a personal interest in it. And for whatever reason, that never happens.
Well, let's get another question here, Jim.
Maybe this question will happen.
This next question was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Fausty Walnuts in San Jose, California. On a recent podcast...
Hey, I've heard, by the way, those are some of the finest walnuts in San Jose.
On a recent podcast...
Brian, let me ask you this. You know what you got when you got nuts on the wall?
What's that?
Walnuts. You know what you got when you got nuts on your chest?
Chestnuts?
Chestnuts. You know what you got when you got nuts on your chin?
No, I do not.
A dick in your mouth. Go ahead.
On a recent podcast...
Hey, yeah, let me ask you this. You know what you call a guy with no arms and no legs sitting on the porch? Matt. You know what you call a guy with no arms and no legs hanging on the wall? Art. You know what you call a guy with no arms and no legs in a bathtub? Bob.
This is awful.
You know what you call a dog with no legs? It don't matter. He won't come anyway.
I will add this one. It is a Jackie Martling joke I heard years ago, and your humor there reminded me of it. What do you say to a woman with no arms?
I don't know.
Nice tits. Well, let's get through this question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Fausty Walnuts in San Jose, California. On a recent podcast, Vince Russo was discussing February 1997.
I'm sure he was.
And getting more involved working with you and Bruce Pritchard on creative.
Yeah, that's about the time it happened.
He went on a 5-minute rant questioning the credibility of the stories Bruce tells due to his history of alcohol and pills.
God damn it.
He even says, quote, Bruce would tell me during the height of WrestleMania, he would tell me stories of him and freaking Vince snorting cocaine in the back of the limousine. I've heard stories of Vince having bottles of wine on his private jet, but did you ever do or witness Vince McMahon doing rails of coke in the back of his limo?
No. And not only that, but I've known Bruce Pritchard about 15 years longer than Shitstain has known him. And Bruce never told me he was in the back of a limo with fucking Vince McMahon doing lines of coke either. And we spent a lot of time together, just like, as a matter of fact, I spent more one-on-one time with Bruce Pritchard. That almost sounds dirty now. Than Shitstain did, because when I was working with Bruce was the period of time where we would most of the time spend the day at his house playing with his dog, acting like we were working if the office called. And then once a week we'd go to Vince's where he'd tell us what we were supposed to write. And then that did not come up. He did share with me that he had done other substances with other talent, which is not germane to this particular point, so we will not give those names. But none of them were Vince McMahon. So here's another thing. Yes, Bruce has mentioned that he has done some substances in the past, but I don't say that he's making up stories or can't remember the stories because of his substance use. I just say that sometimes he makes up stories because they sound better, at least to him, than the actual stories the way they happened. But Shitstain's one to talk about somebody not being able to tell their stories right when his change constantly. At least Bruce's bullshit's fairly consistent. But Shitstain's changes depending on his audience or the way the story was received the last time he told it. He tweaks things so often to make himself sound better. But no, I believe, because it's true, Vince drunk in the fucking bar and the guys giving him their finishes and the fucking plane ride stories and the other stuff. But no, just as a statement, I guess Bruce just liked Shitstain a lot more than me, because all that time that we were alone together, he never confided in me that he used to do lines of cocaine with Vince McMahon in his limousine.
Not to say Vince McMahon has never done cocaine.
I have no knowledge that he ever has, but I didn't say that. I didn't make that blanket statement. I said, if he and Bruce did it, I never heard about it, and I don't know why I wouldn't have heard about it if Shitstain did hear about it, because he wasn't around when it was happening either.
You know, there are pretty famous stories about Vince getting drunk a couple times with the boys and taking the doomsday device in a bar and taking... And see, that's, by the way, by the time that I got around, and especially 96, when I was up there and on a regular basis around him, that was mostly a thing of the past also, until they started getting their own plane where they could act up and not be in public. But I didn't get to witness all of that activity by Vince either. He was fairly straight-laced at that point. Well, that's what I was going to ask you, and you say fairly straight-laced. Did you ever see Vince drunk?
No.
Never once?
No.
All right.
I mean, that's a blanket statement. I'm trying to remember in that period of time. I mean, you know, and I didn't go and sit at the goddamn hotel bar till it closed like a bunch of the guys because they're fucking bored or whatever. I was happy once I got out of TVs or wherever to go to my room, get a pizza, watch some TV, and possibly have some company. But I was not a social butterfly. But in working with Vince, in being at Vince's house on the days we worked there, in driving 3 and 4 hour trips from one place to another in the car with Vince, where we'd leave at, 9 o'clock in the morning and get to the TV at noon and leave at almost midnight and get back to the hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever the fuck. I don't remember seeing him drink alcohol. Maybe a cocktail, 2 cocktails if we went to like the steakhouse, or what was it, a Smith and Wollensky's that he liked to go to in New York, or a fancy dinner at a steak place like that, something like that. He might have a drink. I can't remember specifically that I saw him do it, but I'm not going to deny that he did do it. But I've never seen Vince McMahon drunk. I've never seen Vince McMahon either. I don't know that I ever saw him not saw him take a pill, but was around him after he had taken a pill of any kind. I wasn't around him during his surgery. He had the quads reattached or whatever. I'm sure he might have taken some pain medication, but it's not like he just said, wow, boy, I just had that Vicodin and I'm fucking loopy or anything like that. It's just, no. The drunk in the bar wanting to be one of the boys, Vince, probably mostly ended in that era with the steroid trials. And then whatever he was doing when they all got to be billionaires and got their own plane, I have no idea. I had escaped the asylum by then.
These stories about Vince being able to work on no sleep, and everyone says, oh, he's like a robot or an android or a monster. How's he doing this? Do you think it's the cocaine?
No. Again, no. It's just he's miserable if he can't work. And he doesn't like to sleep because it keeps him from working. We'd go in there on a Wednesday. We're supposed to get there at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Well, that's a fucking 2-hour drive from where we lived, me and Bruce, in those days. So we're in the car at 7 o'clock, but we got up at 6:30 and fucking jumped in the car to go down there and hopefully not be late. We'd come in. Vince has already been up. He's already had his coffee. He's already had his workout in his home gym. He's already got the paperwork spread out on the fucking dining room table. And if you are late, even though he's lived there for 20 years and he knows very well that it can take you 2 hours to go 30 miles in that fucking shithole, he looks down his fucking reading glasses at you and looks at his watch like, what time is it, pal? A lot of traffic? Like that. He was always, and he never wanted to get rid of us. He would not let us leave. At 7 o'clock that night would come around. It'd be dark, depending on what time of year it was. And we're still talking about this horse shit. What's Mark Marrow going to do about whatever? And I'm going to tear my hair out of my fucking head. And he would never want you to leave. And if, all right, I guess that's it. Good place to stop. Finally, you get the fuck out of there. And then he'll go and fucking do more shit. So, and it's not like he wasn't at his office 12 hours a day when he was in Stamford. If he was on the road, he's got his book out. There was 2 reasons he never drove. Number 1, because nobody wanted to ride with him driving because he's crazy. And number 2, that way he can sit in the front seat, in the passenger seat with his book out and fucking book or talk about booking. So he's just, that's him. And he had the famous quote, and it's true, unfortunately. He said I can't remember what interview or publication it was, but he said, when I die, I will die a very frustrated man because there's so much left to do. I'm just going to say, check with me when I'm a fucking billionaire and see if my fat ass wants to do anything.
Did you ever see Vince eat any Magic Spoon?
Well, no, but I'll tell you what, I've seen Vince attacks food. I will say this, and then we will talk about the wonderful people at Magic Spoon. He doesn't want to enjoy it. He wants to get it over with, right? Even if it's a nice steak dinner, he'll go to the best steakhouse in New York, but he takes big bites and he barely chews. When we would go down the road to the little lunch place, a little like a deli and a little store down the road from his palatial estate, for lunch when we were over there, he would always get the same thing, a fucking turkey sandwich with light mustard, just a giant thick, one of those northeast deli, giant thick 2-inch turkey sandwiches with a little mayonnaise, and he would eat the thing in 5 bites while he's looking at his book at the fucking dining room table. It's fuel to him. He doesn't want to enjoy it. He needs it. He needs the intake for his muscle building, but otherwise he wants to get the process over because it keeps him from fucking working with both hands. But folks, I tell you what, I hope that none of you rush through eating the Magic Spoon because it is the best. You should savor this. You're going to Flavor Town. You're living in Ecstasyville. Your mouth will love you forever. Your mouth will kiss you for eating Magic Spoon cereal. And I got some big news, Brian. This is something we have not said on the show so far. We're breaking this now. For a limited time only, this month, Magic Spoon releases 2 amazing new flavors. Are you ready for them, Brian?
I'm ready, and so is Vince.
Cookies and cream and maple waffle.
Oh, I love cookies and cream. That's right down
but
my alley.
maple waffle. Come
Cookies
on.
and cream.
My God.
Cookies and
All right.
cream.
We're going to fight here. Folks, whether it's the comforting, indulgent combination of cookies and cream or maple waffle, I don't know what to tell you. 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein in every serving, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, 140 calories a serving. But it's the best cereal on earth. It's not crap food with sugar and carbs that'll rot your teeth and make your spleen turn green. This is good stuff, but it tastes great. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. And we found out what GMOs are. Genetically modified organisms. And we don't want that shit. You're not going to get any in Magic Spoon. Whether it's the existing cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, or cinnamon, or the new limited time only cookies and cream or maple waffle, you got to get some Magic Spoon. And if you're in Canada, they're shipping there now too. So go to magicspoon.com/Jim to grab the new limited edition cookies and cream or maple waffle, or get a custom bundle of cereal. Try it today. Use the promo code JIM at checkout. Save $5 off your order. This offer is now good anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, but only when you use the code JIM at checkout at magicspoon.com. And of course, they got the 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it, and what a low-class person you would be, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. But who doesn't like the Magic Spoon?
Only a low-class individual.
A low-class individual.
That's right. Well, let's see how classy the next few questions are here, Jim. This next one, I don't know if you saw this. I have a link also if you want to hear any of the actual quotes. Was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Lee in Chatsworth, Georgia. Since none of my other questions have been asked, how about this one? First off, hey there, Jim Cornette. Been a fan since the NWA days. My question is, what do you think about the recent comments by the greatest of all time, Ric Flair, saying that him and Arn are no longer close, and not just Arn, but Tully and Barry as well? Have you been following this?
Well, I actually didn't know about it until I just saw the comment that you're referring to. I saw the clips of, or not clips of, but excerpts of, transcript of the interview that he did on Twitter with that comment and a couple of others. And I didn't know, honestly. I mean, I knew that Ole and Rick were not speaking and hadn't been for quite a while. And I think that was over something that probably went on in the mid-90s with...
it was money.
You know,
it was over money.
Okay. But I didn't know that Rick and Tully and Arn were not that close. I know Barry, I think he kind of lives in the swamp and doesn't talk to a lot of people. But Rick and Arn surprises me. Rick and Tully surprises me because Tully was such a great heel in the 80s that most of the boys didn't like him either, but everybody respected his talent, but they also, were nicer to him than sometimes they would have been because he was tight with Flair. But Rick and Arn were always close, and their wives were close, and they both lived in Charlotte together for years and years. Well, not lived together, but they both lived in Charlotte, and they were guests at each other's home, and et cetera, et cetera. And I read what he said. He said that they didn't reach out to him or get a hold of him when Reed passed away. And that was, one of the big things that kind of, they grew apart. And I can see that, but also did he specifically say to them afterwards at some point after, when time had passed, hey guys, why didn't you reach out to me? Because I didn't. I love Ric Flair and he's done a lot for me. I didn't because I'm squeamish about things like that because I never know what to say to somebody that's lost somebody or has had a tragedy go on. And also some people are like that where they don't want to, call somebody and say something or whatever the fuck. But at the same time, these guys were closer. Tully by that time had, been out of the business for a long time, but Arn and Rick were fairly close and lived close together and et cetera. So
was there anyone closer to Rick than Arn for a number of those years?
Oh,
after Blackjack was gone and Wahoo wasn't there, from 85 on.
Yeah, it'd be close. But the point is, I don't know whether they just is like, we don't know what to say or we don't know what to do, or whether, I'm sure that Arn didn't hear that Reed had passed away and said, oh, well, fuck Rick. He's not that kind of type of person. So I don't know. It's a shame. In wrestling, a lot of times, I guess I just got used to it. Back in the old days before there were cell phones and texting and everything, and I kind of still live in that, era on purpose. You would have close friends in wrestling, and then you'd leave the territory, and you might not see them for 5 years. And then as soon as you saw them again, hey, and boom, and it's like you saw each other last week. You just pick up. But you didn't stay in close contact with a lot of people because in those days it was hard to do when you were on the road all the time. And what are you going to stop at a payphone or make long distance calls to the boys in other territories from a hotel, after the show? That only happened usually when guys were drunk. But anyway, I hate to see that. They were great friends, and that's why the Horsemen worked, because everybody socialized and was together in real life as well as, the world of wrestling. But things happen. I wasn't there from either side, so I don't want to indict anyone, but I'm wondering, was it a case of not knowing what to say or, whatever?
If it was the other way around and something had happened to someone in Arn's family, do you think Rick is the kind of guy to reach out?
Well, he would want to and he would mean to, but here's the one thing about Rick. This is not a fucking secret, and I'm not even indicting him as a personality when I say this, but Rick's scatterbrained as shit. And I know you wouldn't forget something like that happening, but there's one time I told him something. I had an idea for something. This was 10 years ago. I won't even mention what it was, but I had an idea for something. He said, I love it. He said, I'm going to call you from John Taylor's office on Thursday. I'm going to be there. We're going to talk about this. We're going to get something going. This has been 10 years ago. He never called me from his lawyer's office. He's called me since then, but he didn't remember what we were originally talking about.
I really feel bad for him when I read this article with these quotes, because obviously it really hurt him.
Yeah.
That Again, not just Arn, but specifically Arn, Tully, Barry. He mentions Ole too, but Ole's the only one he put a qualifier. Ole's mad at the world. But, you know, he brings up the fact that Eric Bischoff, who he had a pretty bad relationship with in WCW, and things are different now. It's been a long time and they get along, but Bischoff reached out after his son passed. Nothing from Arn. And that's the thing, whether, you know, whatever the reasons were, I felt really bad for Rick reading this article because obviously it meant a lot to him. You know, the camaraderie he had with the Horsemen.
With Arn still living in Charlotte and Reed passed away in Charlotte, and that was a major thing happening in the wrestling community, I don't know how they avoided each other. Like, I'm not meaning they were doing it on purpose, but I don't know how that something wouldn't be said or someplace they wouldn't be together somehow.
Yeah, Arn was still an agent for WWE at that time. But I just felt really bad for Rick reading that. Just, you know, obviously it would have been important if any of them had reached out, but it really affects him that they didn't. And that's pretty sad. Well, let's get another question.
Well, thanks for fucking making us all miserable.
This next question, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jay in West Virginia. A question I've thought about. With the schedules that wrestlers keep, when and how do they do laundry? Especially back in the territory days when you're working nearly every night. When and how did you guys get a wash done? I can't see Yokozuna at a laundromat or Stan Lane hunkered over a bathtub doing a wash. And were there any notorious offenders for not doing a wash often enough? I know
It's time.
I know that Mick Foley was one, and that Vader's mask was known to be funky. I've wondered about people that wore full body suits like Jushin Liger. There's no way they got washed immediately and had to stank. Would love to know your experience from this tremendously important piece of wrestling history.
Well, okay. First of all, it wasn't like guys were on the road like months at a time. You know, you go home and also a lot of guys were married, had girlfriends, and this is not being sexist, but obviously when one person's job is I'm going to be on the road for a week at a time, and then I'm going to come home and still only be home 4 hours a day for a couple of days. You know, your wife would take pity on you and do your laundry for you. It's not sexist, but I mean, on the road, the guys that have gone to Japan, so that would be, you know, because also you're in Japan and you're on the bus and you're fucking wanting to go to Ribera and you're not wanting to do laundry. Tours like that got stanky. But besides, you know, being able to deposit your shit at home and pick up new shit, most hotels had, you know, the fucking laundry room thing where you put the, you know, the quarter into the deal, or, you know, you might have to break down it. But I never had to do laundry anywhere because I always got apartments with washers and dryers, right? Because could you see Jim Cornette, local TV star, sitting at the laundromat, right? I've got enough heat. But in Dallas, when we moved down there, I've told you about the La Quinta. By the way, somebody tweeted a picture of the La Quinta in Irving there off the fucking highway right down next to the airport. They've redone it in the past 35 years. But anyway, I got an apartment specifically because it was a brand new apartment complex, a beautiful place. And they said, oh, yeah, we've got washer and dryer connections and our washer and dryers are coming in next month. Okay, I'll wait. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. So I figured, okay, I was there for 6 months. The washers and dryers never came. So what I would do and I would throw my dirty towels in the left side of the little laundry room and my dirty clothes in the right side of the laundry room. And I'd say, well, there's a laundromat down the street next to a pizza place. I'll break down and do that when I have a chance. Well, after the first month, I started pulling underwear out of the bottom of the clothes pile and the towels out of the bottom of the towel pile because I'm like, well, these look kind of cleaner than the ones on top. And ended up, I did laundry. I lived there for 6 months. I was at that laundromat 3 times. Now, I'd get my suits for TV. I'd get them dry cleaned, but my actual towels, underwear, socks, and walking around clothes. It was brutal for a while. But you just, wherever you get a chance. And a lot of the guys wash their shit out in the room and hang it up in the shower, hang it on the shower curtain rod, or, every time you walked in a wrestler's hotel room in the territory days, there was shit hanging up to dry or to just air out or to get rid of the stank over all the lampshades, shower curtains, fucking, backs of chairs, and that's what you did.
What about, to his example, Yokozuna during the WWE touring days?
Well, that was a lot of washing out in the bathtub also, but Fuji served a lot of purposes, and the Japanese culture is very insistent that the Yokozuna, the grand champion, must be serviced in all facets. So there was a lot of laundry going on there too. And a lot of times shit just stunk.
Who was the stinkiest that wasn't, just a job guy? A regular wrestler.
I don't recall anybody that on a regular, everybody has their moments, and especially depends on the weather and what you've had to go through and et cetera. I don't remember anybody that was a repeat offender that was any of the regular guys besides Porter Leon, who I think it's because it was leather. And I don't know that he had another spandex outfit of tights. I don't know that he had two. I never saw two. But the mask was just brutal. But anyway, besides that, there was that one time stinky job guy on TBS that people have tweeted the clip out. They found it on the network. I don't even remember the guy's name. We never saw him before and never saw him again.
We watched that on 605 once.
Yeah. But basically the guy smelled like a goat. And Bobby and Dennis worked the whole match on selling not wanting to lock up with and or touch him. And I think when Bobby pinned him, he kind of knelt down next to him and reached over and pinned him with a finger on his chest, right? While he was holding his nose. Well, what else are you going to do?
Okay, this may be our final question. Actually, let me go to this one first, because this is an interesting one, and then we'll see how long this goes.
Oh, as opposed to the other ones you've been asking, this is interesting.
I've never heard this one asked before, so this is interesting.
Thank God.
And we're going to play a few cameos and then a song or two. This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Edo Phoenix. Hi, Jim. I would like to find out who is your valedictorian from the class that included John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and Shelton Benjamin.
Oh, good Lord. Well, the valedictorian is generally chosen as the best student, right? The highest achiever. You can say that Shelton was the best student because of the bunch of those guys. He was the best athlete and picked up the in-ring performance aspect of the business the best. You can say Cena was because he ended up having the most success of any of those guys on a regular basis. Brock has been more successful in different fields, but goddamn, that's more. Brock Lesnar's success has been more due to his genetics and physical capabilities rather than any hard work he put into it. Whereas Shelton was hard work, Cena was hard work. Orton, it came more naturally to, and he didn't work as hard at the beginning, but he was much more natural than Brock, and he's had the longest career. Who else was named in there, or was there?
Batista.
Now, he was more like the guy that you asked to stay behind in detention a time or two. I got to say, Cena for the success and Shelton for being the best student of the bunch.
Compared to when these guys were actually called up to the main roster, what did you think the actual order of when they should have been called up to the main roster should have been?
That was very wordy.
Thank you.
Well, I'm trying to think back now. I mean, once again, I would have liked to have had each one of them longer than I did because they still had learning to do. It wasn't like that they were, old pros. I think I was worried when they brought John up because obviously they didn't have any specific idea for him, because the first several there, not several, but at least first couple they tried didn't work out. The fucking happy, smiling, haha, he made a splash, but they didn't like his gimmick. And then he was in danger until he rapped. Batista, they got him. Look at him. Look at the fucking state of him. And they fucking covered him up and, had him carrying Devon's box around. I was most comfortable. I figured they probably weren't going to screw Randy up, but I was afraid Randy might screw himself up attitude-wise in those days. I don't know. I felt all of them. Brock would be the most bulletproof one because how the fuck do you fuck that up? And they didn't. But and Brock was already gone from OVW by the time that they called him up. So they didn't really call him up from here. So I didn't really give a fuck at that point. See, remember, that's when he had a previous girlfriend. He got pregnant before Sable. And she was going to have a baby, and he was constantly browbeating the office to let him go back to Minnesota because his girlfriend was going to have a baby. He just wanted to get out of Louisville. He didn't like training. He didn't like fucking. Brock doesn't like anything. He doesn't like associating with humans, which, believe me, that's highly overrated. But I don't know, a lot of people want to associate with Brock. He wanted to get out of Louisville. He didn't want to train. He just wanted to collect his check at home in Minnesota and work out with Brad Ringens. So they sent him back home for about 6 months, and then they brought him up to the main roster.
Whether it worked out or not, who was in your eyes, the biggest can't miss prospect you had in OVW?
Well, like I said, it was almost impossible to fuck Brock up. The idea was Brock ever going to get the picture enough? Because he wasn't a natural and he didn't like wrestling. But when he turned it on and tried, he could do it. Truthfully, after the first several, I was nervous about everybody because, look, they had many more misses than they had hits. And especially with the guys that they didn't sign to begin with and send here, but that we found and then they signed afterwards. They were always the more expendable ones because they didn't want it to look like they were signing the wrong guys and sending them down here, even though they were signing the wrong guys and sending them down here. So I was always nervous whenever anybody went up because you never knew what would happen. And like I said, they fucking ruined the Bashams. They ruined Jeter, Chris Cage, Mark Magnus. The list goes on and on. Dinsmore. So it was a rotten track record, and most of the best talent. The reason why Orton, Cena, Lester, Batista, that group gets all the attention is because as time went on, we started getting there. Instead of Jim Ross and a creative team under Vince, we went into the comedy writer and the fucking creative team era, and JR stepped down from talent relations. We got replaced with Laurinaitis. So as a result, we didn't have guys as long. We didn't have guys unobstructed without them getting in the way and fucking with their heads or giving them a gimmick in the middle of training that they, had never seen before, whatever the fuck. There was a lot more up in the air bullshit and changes after that happened. And that's when they really burnt through a lot of great fucking talent. They weren't going to fuck Orton up because he was second generation. Brock was an NCAA champion. Cena was, look at him. He had all the tools. But once you got past that, and then we were allowed to have him for a while, year and a half, whatever the case may be. Once it got past that, then they started really fucking with everything. And then, from 03 to 05, they shit on and ran off more guys than they actually brought in and gave good spots to. That's why a lot of those guys quit the business from that era, when they could still be working and still be in their 30s.
All right, Jim. Well, that will be our final question this week. Well, let's get some cameos. It's been a while, and now these are your competitors.
I was about to say, I want to see exactly what my competition looks like. What am I up against here? I got to make these things blow the competition away.
Jim, how much do you think Penelope Ford charges?
Oh, good Lord. Well, for what?
For Cameo. Will you stop it?
For Cameo?
Stop it.
$1.95.
$85.
What? Is she
Or
dressed?
Or you can chat with her. She's clothed. She's a perfectly fine young lady.
What
You
would
don't have
she
to
have to
disparage
say
like
to
this.
anyone that would be worth $85 if she's got her clothes on at the same time?
You can also chat with her for $10.99. But here is...
You got to get your parents' permission before calling on that one, too.
Here is Penelope Ford. Let's play this.
Hi, Mia. You are so kind. Your words mean so much to me. Knowing that you consider me your hero, role model, and I make you happy, like, that fills my heart completely and makes me happy. And I'm glad I inspire you to try different makeup looks. I was thinking about coming out with some crazy looking eye makeup tutorials on YouTube, so then hopefully you can watch them and follow along, and I can teach you some stuff. And I think it's really awesome that you want to be a wrestler one day, and what would really make me proud is you just stay true to yourself and do what makes you happy, and that is what's going to make me proud of you. All right, thank you. Bye. Take care.
That was very nice. For
Well,
$85.
obviously, it's a small child she's speaking to. I can't wait for those eye makeup tutorials. But otherwise than that just shickled the tit out of me to hear that.
Unfortunately, there are no samples here, but we can talk pricing. Dylan Miley is on here.
Whoa!
You know who that is?
Well, that's the ex-Lars Sullivan, isn't it?
Unfortunately, no examples, but $40 for his cameo.
Well, I'm sure he'll do well. Soon as somebody orders one. Then apparently if there are no samples, that means nobody's ordered one. I did an introductory video. It should be up there somewhere for him if he has such a thing. Who knows?
You did an introductory video for him.
No, I did it. I did an introductory video, so there should be for myself. So there should be one of him up there of something. They have you do little introductory videos. I've already done that.
It's not here right now.
Well, I've heard some of his videos have been taken down.
How much do you think Matt Hardy charges?
Well, it depends. Which Matt Hardy is it? Is it the 3,000-year-old Matt Hardy, or the broken Matt Hardy, or the woken Matt Hardy, or the rip-off take all your money Matt Hardy manager?
Actually,
teleporting Matt Hardy?
Funny enough, looking at these samples, apparently you have options, and reading the top, Matt Hardy, AEW superstar wrestler, AEW and WWE superstar, pro wrestler for 28 years. Please specify broken Matt, big money Matt, or regular Matt Hardy. It's complicated. So we have examples here, what appear to be...
Well, in that case, I'd say he's going for $150 because each guy has to make $50 out of it.
It's $110, and it appears based on these images, the samples are for broken Matt or regular Matt. Doesn't seem like anyone's buying big money Matt right now.
Boy, you could say that again.
Jim, do you prefer to hear regular Matt or broken Matt?
Let's hear broken Matt.
Okay, here is broken Matt.
Yes, I am broken Matt Hardy. And this very special video announcement is all about an event that is going to take place on April the 16th and 17th in the lovely Green Bay, Wisconsin. Yes, this event is the Tundra Bowl. Yes, the Tundra Bowl is a Tecmo Super Bowl tournament. Yes. And they are introducing a Friday event which is going to be called Tecmo Twist of Fate. Yes. And it's going to be an event where all kinds kinds of random occurrences could happen at any moment, at any time, right before kickoff. Yes. A wheel spin, and then your twist of fate may be twisted. Yes. I want to wish all of the competitors luck. Yes. During Tundra Bowl weekend, as I said in the beginning, April the 16th and 17th in the absolutely prepossessing Green Bay. May all you Tundra Bowl competitors farewell. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
What in the wide world of sports? That sounds like fucking Paul Bearer imitating Paul McCartney. We'd like to play a song for you from our new LP.
Yes! Oh. Well, for comparison's sake, here's what I believe would be regular Matt. Let's just check out the difference.
Hello to my number one fan in all of the world. My number one fan in all of the multiverse. And apparently, according to Katie, my number one mule. And that is you, Tanya. Yes. What? Now, I know it is the anniversary of your nan's death. And it's a very tough time. It's a very hard, difficult, and challenging time to deal with. But I am here to help you turn that frown upside down, because I want to see you smiling. I want to see you healthy and happy. That is all that is important. I need you to know that. Now, I've been working on a few different deals. I am working on doing this virtual signing that I am going to do on my own at some point and sell some of my ring-worn stuff. Yes, I am still working on that. That is still a work in progress. I promise you'll know whenever it's going to happen, probably before anyone else. And I also want you to know that I absolutely adored your Valentine's Day card. It was so lovely. Thank you so much. So sweet. You're such an amazing artist in the way you put things together. I absolutely adored it. It was great. But what I want you to do is stay strong, stay powerful, because your soul, your essence can never ever fade away and classify itself as obsolete. Fade away and classify itself as obsolete.
What the hell is going on here?
I need you strong. I need you healthy. I need you happy. And make sure to keep your chin up. Stay positive, stay optimistic, because in optimism, there truly is magic. I believe that with every fiber of my being. And I know this is a tough, challenging time, as is the anniversary of your nan's death, but hang in there and be tough. And cherish the great memories that you had with her. Cherish the great times that you spent with her. And remember those. Make it be a celebration.
I can't listen to any more of him.
He started out as a regular Matt Hardy, but he got broke about halfway in, or at least cracked a bit.
Yeah, not good.
Well, now, that just depends on whether you're you or whether you're the person with the nan who has passed away recently.
Jim, how much do you think Bushwhacker Luke charges?
Hopefully less than Matt Hardy. But Luke, $75.
$35.
Oh, come on. That's dirt cheap. Everybody ought to hop on Luke.
A Hall of Famer, and he would probably enjoy that. Here, let's play Bushwhacker Luke.
Whoa, good day, Brian Fullerton. How the bloody hell are you, mate? You're looking good. But let me just give you a little tip, mate. Change that bloody cologne. Smells like shit, or should I say sardines. WWE Hall of Famer here, Bushwhacker Luke. I hear the big day is coming on Saturday, mate. You're turning 41. Many happy returns of the day from your brother Gordon and Bushwhacker Luke. Hey, Brian, I'm throwing the rules out the door. If I was there on Saturday with you, I'd grab you with a big Bushwhacker bear hug, and I'd lay the smack on your head. I'm talking about a good head licking. Hey, that's throwing the rules out because of the virus. Sad. Anyhow, mate, you have a bloody good day this Saturday, huh? And you're turning a great age, 41. You got 59 years to go to make the 100. But, hey, stay healthy and safe, and you're going to get there, mate. Anyhow, this is a big day, mate. I don't know whether you're a dad or you're just a single guy, but us guys only have, if we're dad, we have 2 great days a year, but it's a single one, and it's your birthday. So you're going to make the best of it, mate. Remember the old days when you see in movies, the Romans, how they laid back on the couch or the recliner. They had something built like a recliner, and they got hand-fed. Well, Brian, this is your birthday, and you need to sit back on a recliner or the couch and get waited on. Your wife, your girlfriend, your boy, whatever, is fed or brought in your favorite food. On the other hand, you got a couple of mates, and I guess your brother Gordon is having your favorite brew or cocktail, whatever your taste is. What more can you expect, mate? Good company, good food, and of course, to top it off, a good bloody drink. And not only one, mate, quite a few. And remember, have a couple on the Bushwhacker Luke. You enjoy your day, mate. Hey, as I said, it only comes around once a year. Not like those bloody women, mate. We have to treat them like queens every day. Otherwise, we don't get bloody fed or taken care of. Fuck, that's not right, mate. Hey, it's a woman's world. And that is not right, but what the hell? Anyhow, mate, I hear you're a huge fan of WWE from the mid-'80s on. And you're a Bushwhacker fan. I appreciate that, mate. I appreciate that very much. Hey, it's people like you out there has put me where I am today. You know, if it wasn't fans like you, I wouldn't be doing this right here now. Fans
is he in a rocking
kept
chair?
Me alive.
I don't know what he's sitting in.
Thank God for that.
But it's certainly making a lot of noise.
Otherwise, I would be hanging out to dry. Yep. I'm still not with the pandemic. I haven't gone on the road since February last year. I came home at the end of February from Canada. That was the last time in 2020. Yep. So, but before that, and very soon, I'll be back on the road again. You know, doing signings, arresting.
All right, I'm going to call it. For $35, you can find out why Jonathan Boyd did all the promos.
No, I tell you, hey, Luke and Butch were the most fun team. Luke and Jonathan Boyd was believable, and what a heel. And he got more heat because he got a lot of heat with the boys in the locker room. He was just a miserable son of a gun. So he wasn't as much fun, but Luke and Butch were all kinds of fun to be around, that set of the sheepherders. But Jonathan Boyd, he put fucking icy hot in the crotch of my fucking underwear one night.
Oh.
After a spot show, I was just got into business, right? And I'd worked in the Battle Royal. And so I had my wrestling attire on. So I've left my clothes in the locker room. We're at a high school gym. It's a spot show. I come back. Fucking, we're dressing in like the fucking math classroom or whatever, right? So I put my shit on, I run out, jump in a car, got to go to Memphis that night for TV the next morning. I'm trying to get out of there and, not get caught up in the traffic by the people. So I rushed, and as I'm about a mile away from the gym, I'm like, shit, what the fuck? It was an old trick. You take a big fucking 3 fingers of icy hot and put it in the crotch of somebody's underwear and smear it nice and, flat so you don't notice that it's not a big clump. It's all over. Then when you're sitting on it, it starts laving your balls and your taintal area up. And then you got to stop at the bathroom at the Shell station and go in there and hose your fucking crotch down. Adrian Street Adrian was a great artist. He could draw and paint and everything really well. He did great caricatures. He drew, while they were in Memphis together, a great big poster of the sheep herders, Jonathan and Luke with their sheep herder flag and everything. And you would look at it for a second and be enjoying it and then realize that the flagpole for the sheep herder flag was Luke's giant, throbbing, purple-veined, 6-foot-long cock.
Oh.
This picture that he had drawn. It was very entertaining. I love Luke Williams.
All right, I'm looking through the list. There are some wrestlers here I've never even heard of. So I don't even know what to think of some of these.
Do you think I'm going to be able to do better than this? I'm going to get to the point a little quicker. I'll guarantee you that.
I think yours are going to blow this thing up.
There's going to be some information laid down. The premise is going to be laid down. Names are going to be mentioned. People are going to start being verbally assaulted on a much quicker basis than some of the other ones in the field. And that will be, did we mention cameo.com, cameo.com/ Jim Cornette, or you can just go to Cameo on Sunday, March 7th at noon Eastern and search me, but search quick. I don't want anybody getting mad or upset or possibly initiating legal action specifically because they get left out and we cut the cameos off before they get a chance to order it. I do not want to be sued because I know there's somebody out there that would take that case because there's somebody that defends the rights of people all over the world in wrestling and out. Somebody that seeks to bring justice to the little man. Somebody that seeks to bring compassion and compensation to the aggrieved individuals who have been wronged in a legal and jurisprudence environment. And that person is...
Is it that man?
It's not that man.
That was Gilbert. No, it's this man.
Gilbert. It's this man.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Go to the rest.
Yeah, that's the docket. That's the docket right there that I'm crumbling up because Stephen P. New walks you past all that. He goes straight to the judge and he says, Judge, this here crook here is innocent. And the judge says, the case is closed. That's what it's as easy as that with Stephen P. New of newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. He was just on The Experience as a guest a couple of weeks ago talking about trying to get poor Pele Primo out from under the nuisance suits put against him by the infamous Dick wrestler. And now we've just found out, apparently, Kelly Klein, one of the female wrestlers for Ring of Honor, has retained Stephen P. New's services because she was jacked around and victimized in her contract negotiations with Greg the Office Boy over at Ring of Honor. So we're going to keep an eye on that case. But Stephen P. New bringing justice not only to the world of wrestling, but also to your world, whether it be Minden, West Virginia, or whether it be Pixley. It doesn't matter where you live. He'll come to you. As a matter of fact, tell him I said that. Call him up and say, Stephen, I live in Antarctica, but I want you to come to me and defend my case. Jim Cornette said you would. And he'll agree with you right before he hangs up on you. 888-692-8084, newlawoffice.com. Get even with Stephen.
Jim, how much do you think James Storm charges?
Oh, now you're talking about Cameo. See, my mind automatically goes to the gutter. We're back on Cameo now. Storm's a heck of a promo, the cowboy there, and he's contemporary, and he's been on television. He's got to be a $75 guy.
$40.
What? Come on.
Here he is now.
Hey, what's up, guys? It is
freezing out here, as you can tell. But this goes out to the Wrestle Chat guys because my buddy Chris has informed me that he's been holding on to that Money in the Bank briefcase for over a year. And it's funny that it's so cold out here because it seems like it's going to be a cold day in hell before you guys actually beat him because he's held it for over a year. That's like Goldberg status or something, man. Come on. I don't think that you guys are actually going to be able to beat him if you haven't done it within a year. So, with that being said, there's only one more thing for me to say to you guys. Sorry about your damn luck. Hold on to it, Chris.
All right, have you thought about this yet, that people are going to be asking you to cut promos about little fictitious feuds for fake titles that they have with people from Wrestle Chat or whatever this was?
Well, but first of all, it was outside, obviously, because it was cold. Was James doing some of his community service for those DUIs, picking up garbage on the side of the interstate or what? I'm just kidding. I'm joshing. Cowboy drinks beer as part of his gimmicks. That's where I was going with that. But it was cold. He was outside.
He was.
I'm not going to do any of my stuff outside. I'm going to be inside in climate-controlled environment of Castle Cornette. I will, however, as you asked, if somebody needs me to represent them as a wrestling manager in a grudge match to the death against some cretinous opponent, I will do the best I can to represent them in the standards and practices amongst which wrestling managers live their code of honor by.
Jim, how much do you think Danhausen charges?
I don't know what a Danhausen is. That's a plumbing company, isn't it?
He's that wrestler that, I don't know if he's supposed to look like a Scandinavian death metal character or what he is. Brian Johnson.
I didn't know they had Scandinavian death metal.
Brian Johnson did that promo on Ring of Honor television about him, how he's making a mockery of the business.
That's okay. That's right. Yes.
$20. Let's hear what this guy sounds like. He is in full makeup, by the way.
Hello, yes, Danhausen. This is Danhausen here. Danhausen with a message from Matthausen. How do you do? Let's see. Finally turning 34. Birthday. Oh, this is a birthday message from Matthausen, Jennyhausen, Jesshausen, and Willhausen. You like PlayStation? Danhausen played Crash Bandicoots once. Very nice, very good. Oh, but of course, wrestling. Danhausen, number one Vanhausen. Yes, very good. Anyways, Danhausen wishes you the best. Very nice, very evil. Happy birthday, Hausen of some sort. And, get some sour passes, do that. And,
what in the...
What else do you do on birthdays? Eat presents. Yes, do that. Have a nice time. Love that, Danhausen. Okay, bye.
Well, there he is, Danhausen.
Okay, now what's the gimmick?
He's wearing, like I said, this Scandinavian death metal kind of makeup, and I didn't know he talks like this.
What is the gimmick? Explain to me.
I can't explain it. What am I supposed to explain? I don't know how to explain this.
Okay, somebody needs to buy a cameo for $20 from Danhausen for me and tell him, explain your gimmick to Jim Cornette.
Hold on, here's an announcement from Danhausen.
Hello, yes, very nice, very evil, very powerful. Danhausen here. Famous internet. Yes, well, I guess so. This is the internet. Famous interdimensional celebrity of some sort. And yes, Danhausen here. Tell you you're watching. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself, Hausen. Yes. Hosted by Jeff Foxhausen and Dustin Garmenhausen and Foxworthy 257 Twitch channel. Isn't that nice? Anyways, love that, Danhausen. I do not watch this. Up yours.
All right, well, there he is. Danhausen, star of Ring of Honor. They've come a long way since you were there, Jim.
It's another reason why I neglect to put my stamp of approval on most things these days. That's in Ring of Honor, eh?
It is. Quite interesting. Jim, how much do you think Molina Perez charges?
I would I'm afraid to say because I'm always either way over or way under, but Melina, hotter than a $2 pistol, fine talent, $90.
$25.
Oh, come on.
Here is OVW alumnus Melina.
Peter, you're so sweet. Like, that's the sweetest thing. Like, to say, wish me happy birthday. Oh, it's coming up. It's coming up. And it's so crazy because I keep forgetting, like, my age. I keep saying I'm older than I am. I skipped a year. I keep doing that. Like, now I think I'm really like, I'm not keeping track, but I love celebrating the day. Actually, the week. I'm like, this is my birthday week. But I totally do that. I think I probably celebrate for a month, actually. But it's just, you know, it's just something to be happy about. Like, it's just given a reason to just smile and be happy and celebrate. And you got to do that every so often, you know? And not only for your birthday, but also just in life in general. Just gives you that good feeling of like, yeah, we earned this happy day. So that makes me happy. And you said you loved my paparazzi entrance and like, oh, thank you. Isn't that funny how things work out, you know? You kind of like start throwing ideas together, throwing it out there, and then creating it. And you don't even know if it's going to take or not or how people will respond. But it ended up being really awesome, like really awesome. So it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm glad I could check this off my bucket list that I got to experience that. And, you know, at first when it was just with those Eminem and then on my own, like that was just dream come true. So I'm glad people were able to appreciate it. And when it comes to the song, I never thought, isn't it funny how it's like, I had it in Eminem. It's the same with the red carpet entrance. Like that was Eminem, but then I was able to keep using it for just myself. And to me, it was a great reminder of where I came from and how I started in the WWE. So it's always that great feeling when it came to, as I was a manager, or actually, I managed. So as I was a manager, because I wasn't a valet, I was totally a manager. So it's a great feeling to have, like knowing that I started out as a manager.
There's no time limit on these cameos, folks.
Using that entrance and
all right, we'll call it there. That was very nice, though. Very nice.
That's it. There's Melina. You can tell she's always sour and bitter and negative, and no, she's very cheerful. A bargain at twice the price. $20 for every. She ought to jack that way up. And by the way, you're the music expert. I don't know I'm sure they didn't use this in the WWF for Eminem, but who did the song Superstar? Make me a superstar.
Oh, I forget.
I loved their entrance. That's the only one in OVW that I would lay out on and wouldn't announce over the top of. Because they were so good. The fur coats, Morrison and Joey Mercury, the fur coats, and the paparazzi, and her doing the split under the bottom rope and everything. I gave them 3 minutes for their fucking intro on local television. It was the best part of the show. Who did that song?
I don't remember.
God damn it, I'm typing it in now. Wait a minute. Superstar Billy Graham is the first thing that pops up when I type it. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking, Jim, how much do you think?
Oh, wait a minute. It wasn't the Carpenters.
No.
Oh, this is long ago and oh so far away. I fell in love with you before the second show. Your guitar, it sounds so sweet and clear, but you're not really here. It's just the radio. That is a great song, but not for a heel tag team to enter.
No.
So, what was the name of the fucking song they used? It said, "Make me a superstar." I don't know what the fuck. What was that? Somebody's got to tell me.
You were the promoter. You should know these things.
It was their pick of their music. I just bought the CD 20 years ago. You expect me to remember these things?
Okay, well, Jim, how much do you think Jim Powers charges?
To do what?
Cameo.
Oh, I thought he was in roofing these days. $15. I don't know.
$50.
$50?
Here's a message from Jim Powers of the Young Stallions.
Jim Powers here from the WWF, WWE, and WCW. You asked me a question about anything that had to do with the wrestling business, and I'll give you an answer. And I will give you a straight shoot answer. Looking forward to hearing back from you. Jim Powers, one half of the Young Stallions, the original winners of the 1987 Survivor Series. Talk to you soon.
Is he on the fucking interstate? What is it?
He's sitting down and appears in his apartment, but he basically said, I'll answer any questions you have. Let me know what they are. But that's it. He didn't answer any questions.
There's the introductory video. See, I guess that's where you play when you don't have it. Maybe nobody's asked him any questions. But what does he? The question I have is, does he not have a wall in his apartment to where he's sitting in his home, but yet the traffic sounds like it's 5 feet away?
Well, hold on. Here's him outdoors. Let's see if this sounds different.
Oh, that sounds much different.
Hey fans, Jim Powers here, former professional wrestler, one half of the Young Stallions, and the winners of the first ever Survivor Series. I'm looking forward to reaching out and touching some of my fans and giving them some congratulatory wishes, whether it be class of 2020, whether it be graduating high school, a birthday party, and so on. But reach out to me. Let's make arrangements. And I look forward to touching base with some of the fans that I entertained from the years of 1984 with WWF to 1998 when I finalized my career, retired from WCW. Thank you. I look forward to hearing back from you.
Okay, maybe it is.
Sounds like he's leaving a voicemail for an accountant. Can you please help me with my tax audit that's coming up on the 3rd? I've never met this guy. I don't know. Did he take blunt force trauma to the head often?
I don't know. I don't know. But
he's looking forward to reaching out and touching some people.
Here's someone that most wrestling fans can't stand. How much do you think Jonathan Coachman charges?
Oh, good Lord. Well, he's a big-time celebrity. I would say he's got to be $125, $130.
$40.
Oh, hard times.
Let's hear from Jonathan Coachman.
Anthony A-Train. The A-Train. What's good, my man? It's your boy, the Coach. Now, I can honestly tell you that part of the reason I started doing Cameo was I wanted to connect with fans of mine from WWE, but also ESPN. But I also wanted to connect with sports fans in this way, one-on-one. And I can honestly say, in these 600 plus connections, I don't call them videos, I call them connections that I've had, you're the very first one, my man, that I screwed up not once, not twice, but 3 times because I'm a moron. And I apologize, first and foremost, because I didn't get this notification on your birthday. Your boy Clinton did it right. He booked it. I didn't do it because I didn't get it. That's no excuse, though. We have to be better. So I apologize. Happy belated 30th birthday. Second, I did a heartfelt one. It came from the heart. I had this microphone all hooked up. Little did I know I didn't have it turned on because the batteries are dead. I'm an idiot. That's 2. Then third, I did it, and then I unplugged the microphone, and it froze, and we lost the video. So this is take number 4, just for you, A-Train. So I've now given you over 10 minutes of my life. You should feel very, very special. Now, I will say this. The one question I get, I try to do answer a couple of different questions on these. I don't just like to say happy birthday. To me, that's not worth it. I want to connect, right? So one of the biggest questions I get is, why did you leave the WWE? Well, I can tell you a lot of reasons why a lot of people leave the WWE. It's not necessarily because they hate it or they don't want to do it forever. And most people don't understand. All they see is the Monday night and the Friday night and the pay-per-views. And it's all glamorous and it's fun and it's performing. And there was nothing I enjoyed more than going out in front of 15 or 20,000 fans and making them boo, making them hate me, make them feel something. But here's the deal. It's 52 weeks a year. It's 4 to 5 days a week on the road. That's fun when you're 23, like when I started. But after 4 or 5 years of never missing a Monday night, in 10 years, I missed one Monday night. And that was for my honeymoon. And I'm divorced now. So what does that tell you? That was a mistake? But sometimes when you want to have a life and you want to have kids or you want to have relationships, pro wrestling is not the business for you. And that's what I try to tell people who are fans that have never been a part of it. As far as ESPN, the reason I left is because I wanted to do golf. And I wanted to make a difference. And when you're at ESPN, they look at you as one thing. You're either a talent, a producer, or an executive. I want to be an executive as well. I want to run big sports organizations so we can help and connect with fans just like you.
I want to be a double
what I
knot
think
spy.
I'm best at, and I love connecting. So that's why I left WWE, and that's why I left ESPN. Now, I will tell you this. You've hit a really important milestone of a birthday. 30 is no joke. But here's the thing you can't do anymore. You can't say, well, you know what? I can act like a dumbass because I'm only 29 or I'm only 28. No, those days are...
All right, I'm calling this one.
Yeah, and also I want to run a major organization. My name is Elma J. Fudd. I'm a millionaire. I own a mansion and a yacht. All righty then.
Before we wrap this up, let's revisit some of our favorites from the past. Once again, for only $85, Darby Allin. Now, we've heard him do skits that were funny, and then sometimes, seemingly, he's just sitting there talking for a few moments. Let's hear what this one is.
Maxie, what have you done by the age of 30? Nothing. You haven't been TNT champion. Have you climbed Mount Everest? I have climbed Mount Everest. I am...
Get the hell out of here right now.
Yo, Maxie, this is Darby Allin. Don't listen to that asshole. I'd like to wish you a happy 30th birthday, and hopefully one day when AEW is back to touring, we will see you in London. In the meantime, Maxie, have a kick-ass 30th.
So once again, a little skit here where someone
He had an impersonator at the start.
Who was three times the size of him, yes.
I actually was about to say, he sounds like he's got so much personality in these promos. Why didn't he sound that way on TV? And then the real Darby Allin came in and he sounds just like he sounds on TV.
Of course, for $119, I think the price may have gone up. Diamond Dallas Page. Now, we've joked about the fact that he usually starts most of these with the same promo, and then it just becomes a hard sales pitch for anything he's currently selling.
But he does put in a lot of time on these. Now, he gives people their money's worth after the 7 minutes of commercials.
Yeah, I guess he has a lot of time. But let's hear this one. By the way, the shirt says...
part of this one.
The shirt says DDP Yoga. Whatever he's rebranded it to, that's not what's on the shirt.
I thought it wasn't fucking yoga.
No, it's DDPY, as in, why don't you get rid of the DDP part of the logo? Yeah, whatever. Here's Dallas Page.
Yo, Z, what's up, brother? It's me. It's DDP. That's right, Z, Diamond Dallas Page, the king of bada bing, the master of the diamond cutter, the 3-time world champion, WWE Hall of Famer, and founder and CEO of DDP Yoga. Better known today, Z, as DDPY. Why? Because I want people to stop calling it just effing yoga. That's why.
Every time.
But I'm not here to talk about the greatest transformation app on the planet. I'm here to talk about you, Z. That's right, brother. Because I hear you're getting married. Armand let me know that you're getting married, and he says you are a great dude, super generous with friends and family. And he said you're a big fan of mine and pro wrestling and sports history buff. And he said that you are getting your place ready for your lovely lady, Sarah, to move in after you guys get on that honeymoon in Hawaii. Now, that's a sweet place to check out. Now, I've been out there a couple times, and I love surfing out there, and actually went out to Kauai. That was super sweet. But Kauai's kind of like, man, it's kind of like being in the 60s still out there, which is kind of really cool. So I hope you have an awesome wedding, brother, and I'm going to branch off of that right now because you are a wrestling fan, and I know that, the fans like to know, like, behind-the-scenes stories.
All right, I can't take any more of Dallas Page.
Kauai is really fucking great. It's one
of my favorite places in the world.
The Garden Isle, right? No big cities, just the resorts and the nature and the wilderness.
It's where Kevin Von Erich moved.
Yes, the nature and the wilderness and the Von Erichs.
Yeah. The best body surfing I've ever done in my life was in Kauai. I love Kauai.
What body did you surf on?
I surfed on my own body. I'm guessing you've never body surfed before.
Have
you ever swam in the ocean?
I've balanced on a couple of people's bodies.
Have you ever swam in the ocean?
Well, yes. Not really swimming to go from one place to another, but floating as to not drown. I don't really swim. I just float. And I swim long enough to get to another place that I want to be that would be more comfortable than the place that I'm at. But I don't get in water with the intent to swim a specific distance because that's just stupid.
Do you know how to swim?
Yes.
Okay.
I just choose not to do it on a regular basis. And mostly, to be honest, I'd rather be in a pool than in the ocean because there's still the element of not knowing what the fuck you're stepping on.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You step on a lot of crabs in the ocean.
Yeah, see,
Now, I will say, the cameo section is over now. Thank God.
Thank you. I think I can do it, Brian.
I think you don't have any competition. You have no competition here. This is virgin territory.
Because I am that man that walked that barbed wire fence 32,000 miles barefooted, eat steel wool like cake, sop lightning with bread, picked up Plymouth Rock, caught 9 pounds of buckshot. Baby, you know what I'm saying.
But Jim, with that, the drive-thru is closed.
Never failer.
All right.
We're ending on a high note.
We needed something. Of course, the Jim Cornette Experience debuts Saturday, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Jim will review AEW, The Young Rock, and who knows what else. Check it out. And of course, the drive-thru back with you next Tuesday, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Get access to full episodes, clips of episodes, and omnibus collections on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll come right up with the exclusive and amazing Travis Heckel artwork, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Patreon.com/Cornette. For everyone that says, hey, how can I access the classic shows? How can I access the archive? Become a patron today. For only $5 a month, get access to all the shows from the beginning in 2013. Right now, we are uploading shows each and every week from 2016. Check it out today. Patreon.com/Cornette for the
How
drive-thru.
many hundreds of hours are there up now for only $5 a month?
Several. Several at least.
Several hundreds.
A few? Several?
Hundreds.
Hundreds
of hours. $5.
Patreon.com/Cornette. The drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com. It is coming very, very soon, the reopening of the store. And don't forget, March 7th, Jim Cornette on Cameo. Finally, maybe for the last time. We'll see how it goes.
Taking you to Cameo land, baby.
But until Saturday on The Experience and Tuesday, right back here on the drive-thru for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!
Chlamydia.